All right, welcome everyone to Access Fallout, the What Really Happened video. I'm Brandon, and here with me are Cam and Pete, and we're the ones running Access here. And we also had Mac with us on production, who won Access Forge, the last season of Access. We had a great time with this season. It was a fun season overall. We're excited to dive into it with you. Here is our cast from this season. This is Access Fallout because every decision usually comes with a price. The question is, who's going to pay it? And so we started off with three teams of six, 18 players total. Um, and so here you can see the teams. And the major twist of this season is that if you got an extra access card, or there was two challenges where you could get a burn. Basically, a burn is you either get an advantage that you have to give to someone else, or you get a disadvantage that is imposed upon you, usually for the next round that you're vulnerable. So that was the main twist of the season. This was Cam's brainchild idea, and I think it worked out really, really good. I think even how the burns came out struck fear into the hearts of players far and wide. So it was a good twist. Um, for our first challenge, we gave the players access to talk to each other before the game even started, and they had to rank each other on who they trusted the most to who they trusted the least, and that determined the selector row. That determined who got to select people to go up in these rounds for the first challenge. Lulu was the most trusted. She accidentally picked Rich from her own team to go into the first round. Thankfully, it didn't influence much. Um, Doug was the second most trusted, and so on and so forth. But Abby is the one that ends up doing the best in this challenge and wins it for the pink team. The blue team ends up being eliminated first, which means they go into elimination. Abby, right out of the gate, dominating with these physical, tactile challenges. There you can see her stacking her cups against Aiden and Lulu in the final challenge, and she does this in like 3 seconds, I think. She basically just stacks the whole thing up and pulls them out in the first try. So yeah, she was very prepared for that. Lulu, since she was the most trusted by everyone to start off the season, she got the first burn, which was the mime disadvantage. Basically, she just had to talk in GIFs for the first 24 hours, which rubbed a few people the wrong way, but really didn't impact all that much. Um, so that's pretty much that. Getting into the teams and different alliances going on, or at least relationships that were starting out of the gate. Right off the bat, Dylan and Alex formed a bond, and they seemed to be close. Alex and Dylan had also played in orgs before, so they also had a relationship. And then you can go on to the next team. On the pink team, there really wasn't anything starting out. They were safe, and they weren't super active with each other. But the women did form a ladies' alliance called the Fallout Shelter. So it's basically Abby, Patty, and Cake from the pink team, along with Lulu from the green team and Zizi from the blue team. And they basically were like, "There's only five of us women out of 18 people. We got to stick together." And so they formed that alliance. And then on the blue team, since they were vulnerable, everyone at first very easily agrees Tyler is the most inactive. We should just take him out. And ZZ, Elijah, and Jason formed the next alliance of the season called the Book Club. I think they were actually the first alliance of the season. I think the women's alliance
Yeah.
was the next day. But right out of the gate, them three clicked together and formed an alliance right out of the bat. However, Dylan and Vonnie decided to be really active. Vonnie, understandably, he's part of the pink team trying to figure out what to do because he has to decide who to shred on the blue team. Dylan could have just sat back and done nothing this round, and he would have been fine. But he decides to get really active along with Vonnie. Basically, a whole season's worth of gameplay happens between Dylan, Vonnie, ZZ, and the blue team and other members of the cast. Dylan and Vonnie driving most of it, and I think the trail of what happens here is that um, Elijah and Dylan have a conversation, trying to get a feel of what they want to do, people they want to target early on and stuff like that. Elijah tells Dylan that Elijah had done his homework. He'd seen the videos from the previous season. It's a good idea. So if you're watching in the future season, watch this video. It'll help you out a lot. And Elijah had seen that Cake and Abby had played before and really wanted to target them. Thinks that we should take out the people that have played before, especially Abby and Cake, who are big social threats. Dylan tells Vonnie this. Vonnie doesn't like that Elijah is targeting his pink team members, so to try to defend them, he gets Dylan and ZZ together to flip the target onto Elijah. And I think even ZZ tells Dylan and Vonnie about this book club alliance with Elijah and Jason, but they are flipped to try to target Elijah, and they're doing all kinds of shenanigans in order to try to make this happen. Most of it not really working because Elijah had a lot of trust with Hendy, and nobody was really talking to him either. Um, you can go on to the next slide. But Vonnie does successfully convince the entire pink team to shred ZZ because ZZ in the book club alliance was supposed to give her access card to Elijah, wanted to not break her word in that, but this wasn't out for her to still take out Elijah and keep her word. Um, and so you can go to the next slide. However, Vonnie and Dylan just kept messing around with lots of different people, and eventually Dylan and ZZ came together and said, "We just can't trust Vonnie. He's doing too much shadiness, going and spreading too much information to different people. We need to target Vonnie the next time he's vulnerable. And why are we taking out Elijah for him? We should take out Tyler because he was the original target. Why are we doing Vonnie's dirty work for him?" So they flip against him. Tyler becomes the target. Um, and yes, that's pretty much the end of the Dylan and Vonnie saga of this episode. However, when it came to brass tacks, as it was getting close to elimination time, towards the access ceremony, the blue team started talking to each other and realized that a lot of people were going to give their access cards to ZZ, and Agent and Hendy really didn't like that ZZ had all this power and told that to Elijah, I believe. They went to Elijah and said, "Hey, we don't think ZZ should have all this power. Maybe we should target ZZ. Maybe we should take ZZ out." And because of that, Elijah goes back to the book club, tells ZZ and Jason, and ZZ especially felt betrayed by Agent because ZZ had been defending Agent, trying to work to keep Agent in, keep the heat off of Agent. And so ZZ found an opportunity to target Agent and was going to take it. And if you go to the next slide, this shows how everybody gave their access cards. Um, so, yeah, so Elijah, ZZ, and Jason exchange. Tyler was told to just give his access card to ZZ, and ZZ will save her. And then Hendy gave his access card to Elijah, and I forgot to put who Agent gave his access card to. Let me just pull that up real quick.
The Handy.
Yes, yeah, he gives it to Hendy. Sorry about that. I forgot to put that in there.
Hmm.
So it ended up being Tyler or Agent going with ZZ deciding. And of course, ZZ was going to take out the person targeting her in Agent, saving Tyler. So this could have been a really simple round. In fact, everybody minus Tyler made an alliance together on the blue team saying, "Let's just take out Tyler." And all they had to do was just sit there and do nothing but that. But then they got paranoid, and that led to Agent's early departure. What do you
Yeah,
guys
this
think?
also became the start, I would say, of Dylan and then Vonnie's downfall. Basically, they played way too hard and started rubbing people the wrong way. Basically, started trying to push people to do to vote a certain way, etc. And people just did not like being told what to do. On top of the fact that because they were both simultaneously doing this, but then they were seemingly doing this with different motives, although at the same time, they kind of got paired together as a duo. Well, as soon as they were paired together as a duo, they immediately did not want to be seen as a duo, especially Dylan alongside Vonnie, and so they started going against each other. Um, Definitely did not need to happen, as you just got done saying, but this was a wild round.
Yeah, and it's not even that they were overplaying, they just were playing messy. Because as soon as they felt like someone was betraying them because they shared information that they weren't expecting to be shared or something like that, they just believed, oh, that person's against me and I have to go against them. And Dylan at one point was like, yeah, I'm on the green team, but I'm very much with the pink team. And then all of a sudden it flipped once he was against Vonnie that no, I'm actually really with the blue team. It's like, but and they were talking about hoping for a team shuffle coming up soon. It's like we're only in the first round. You're doing
Yeah.
way too much. Um,
On top of the fact that the other aspect here is like Vonnie is defending his pink team, very, very much pink team strong.
mhm,
However, if the pink team loses, one of the pink team members have to go.
right.
On top of the fact that even if Elijah wants to target the pink team is safe. So nobody on pink is going home. So you don't have to go gung ho and get Elijah out because somebody still is going to go home on the pink team if they lose.
hmm Yeah, I think even after this round, it gets out to Abby and Cake that, well, Elijah was targeting you. And I think Vonnie's like, that's why I was trying to save you. Abby and Cake go to Elijah, and Elijah lies to them, of course. No, I was never doing that. And they believe him. Like, so they blame everything on
Yeah.
Vonnie, because that would be more believable that Vonnie was acting nefarious behind the scenes. I think Vonnie even at one point was just like, I'm gonna mess with Dylan to try to break him and it was intense.
Yeah. Pete, how do you think the idea of inter-tribe communication worked this season?
I feel like it caused a lot of chaos early on, but it also created the people who knew how to use it correctly used it to their advantage, and you'll see that throughout the video. The people who didn't quickly torpedoed the games because the people who understood how to use it right used it to their advantage, and the ones that didn't, you'll see them on the next coming slides. I
Yeah.
say, and truthfully, the person who played this round the best was honestly Tyler. He started the round off as the target. He sat back and said, "Oh, everybody's talking. Good. We're just gonna."
Sit back.
Yeah.
Yep.
I said, and he made it through.
Yeah, and he just basically pledges undying loyalty to ZZ, and I think ZZ was like, I have nothing to worry about. Tyler's not talking to anybody else, so like,
Yeah.
whereas Agent was clearly talking just too much, and expressed doubt to the wrong person at the wrong time, and that's what gets him eliminated. Um, After this, Agent had to give an envelope, since the pink team, they all voted to shred ZZ. ZZ was the only person eligible to receive an envelope because anyone who gets a shred vote, or a shred mark, from the winning team, they are eligible to receive the envelope from the eliminated player. ZZ was the only one. Agent gives ZZ an envelope, and it contains a final two pass. So right out of the gate, ZZ starts with a final two pass, which is wild. I think that happened last season with Mac too. And ZZ wasn't very thrilled with this because it's not obviously what you need starting out of the game, but it's a great thing to get. You need it at some point, and now's not a bad time to get it. And you have plenty of time to get a key yet as well. Um,
Yeah, definitely finishing this first round. ZZ is in the power position, has a strong alliance with basically Tyler pledging allegiance along with Elijah and Jason, and then Hendy is on an island by himself. So if they lose again, Hendy can just go. So
yep.
ZZ is sitting pretty here.
Yeah. And ZZ was part of all the drama with Dylan and Bonnie, but wasn't attached to it, uh, wasn't
Yeah.
blamed as part of it. Pete, what did you think?
Yeah, as I say, it's funny coming into this first week. Just in the pregame, Dylan really talked about how he had changed his approach. And at first, when we watched the Dylan Vonnie relationship, we're like, okay, Dylan's actually going to manipulate Vonnie into being the new Dylan. And by about day 3 or 4, Dylan quickly realized he liked being Dylan, and, and then Vonnie just went back and forth. And from a production standpoint, it was great to watch. At this gameplay standpoint, you're like, oh, come on, Dylan. Did you not learn your lesson?
Yeah, well, he didn't want to be too inactive like last season and go out. And that he was
Yeah.
not. He was not,
Yep.
he was very active. ZZ also got an extra access card, which means she received the next burn which was a doozy. It was being vulnerable. So even if her team wins the next challenge, she would have to go into the next access ceremony anyways. I think in production, we were anticipating this would probably come out in the individual phase, so that even if you won the challenge, you would still have to give up your access card and you weren't safe still, which is an interesting twist. But this ended up coming out in the right away in the team phase, really putting the fear of the burns into the players, which ended up being really, really good and really furthering the twist idea. Uh, but ZZ's got this.
Yeah,
ZZ,
we
yeah, go ahead.
ended up having one of the easiest and then one of the most challenging burns in this first round with the mime and now the vulnerable.
Yeah.
So
All
fun
right.
randomness.
Yes. Uh, all right. So here, agent's gone. ZZ has the final two pass and the vulnerable disadvantage. Moving on, the next challenge was I forget what it was called, but basically it was Sushi Go, and we made our own Sushi Go cards. Excuse me. There you can see the how everything shook out at the end, especially the points. There you can see the blue team kills it, 51 points. Green team was close with 48, and the pink team was behind with 34, meaning the blue team now is voting to shred, and the pink team is vulnerable, so kind of flip-flopping what happened last round. Moving on, or Cam, did you want to say anything about this challenge?
Yeah, so I'll just say so one, it was called Hunter Gatherer. And the biggest thing for me was that there was quite a lot of talk about strategies in this game. Dylan, right off the bat, is feeling the heat and decides to, according to him, try to throw the challenge. Unintentionally, he actually makes a really good move and does well for their team, even though he intentionally just didn't listen to anyone and just played a card of his choice. But there were clearly some people that had good strategies, and then some that just did not know what they were doing. AKA the pink team. They were just choosing cards at random. They weren't planning ahead, knowing what cards were going to come around. So there was very different strategies in this game.
Hmm. Yeah, I think even if you go to the next slide, Uh, so I think what ended up happening here was that Lulu with the mime tried talking to Dylan with the gifts, and Dylan right off the bat was like, "Oh, this is gonna piss me off if you're just talking in gifts and treating this like a joke." Which she wasn't. She was under a disadvantage and couldn't talk straight. And then I guess that she told some other people after she was done with the disadvantage about that interaction, and it got back around to Dylan. So Dylan tried apologizing to Lulu, but then something about, I think Lulu told someone else that Dylan tried apologizing to her, and he viewed that as the biggest betrayal, something along those lines. And so he goes scorched earth. I'm going to destroy this green team, and I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory, um, as you can see there with his fire. Um, however, this only pushes the dominant alliance of the season, the non-toxic alliance, if you go to the next slide, together. And they work in order to try to calm Dylan down, which they eventually are successful, and to actually work with them to do well in the challenge. And we're very close to winning it. Um, Cam or Pete, what did you think of all this as it was going on?
So, for those of you that don't know what Sushi Go is, I don't either. I thought the production of the cards was amazing. And the strategy Dylan had was hilarious because from an outsider standpoint, I'm like, way to win backwards or lose backwards. And the
Yeah,
best part for Dylan is, you know what? Early on in this game, not having a lot of power is the safer way to go. So the fact that he managed to land his team in second, where you don't have to shred, you don't get eliminated, like he gave his team the best gift he could,
Hmm.
even though that was nowhere close to his plan. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
This also started the blue team sort of brainiac side with Hendy and Jason starting spreadsheets. They had a spreadsheet going, and after the for the way the game that works after the third round, you have access to every card in the game knowledge wise. So they were just playing out every scenario possible. If we take this card and the other two teams both take these cards, what are the points possible here? And clearly it worked.
yeah, they really dominated it. Um, Yeah, and so there you can see the blue team here. Not much really changed. Tyler is most loyal to ZZ. Jason is even within the book club. Elijah is very much in the driver's seat because ZZ and Jason both feel more loyal to Elijah. And even after the last elimination with Agent going, Hendy comes to Elijah and is like, "What happened?" And Elijah lies to him and says, "I don't know. I was with you guys." And Hendy buys it and doesn't go around to fact check or really care. And so Hendy is full in Elijah's camp. So basically, everybody trusts Elijah as their number one. Tyler trusts ZZ as his number one. And that's pretty much the dynamics of this team.
This
Uh,
is also one of those situations with the intertribe alliance or intertribe talking where you could very quickly figure out who has envelopes.
mhm.
And nobody did that.
Yep.
Like this is one of those situations where the pink team says, "Oh, we all voted for the same person." They're they're not told who voted for that person, but like there was a 6-0 vote, so they clearly each know who got the envelope. So they could have easily figured this out. They could have put a target on ZZ's back early here, and nobody decided to do that.
Yeah.
I say for
Oh, go ahead, Pete.
I was just say for as much as Vanny talked in the first two rounds, you would think Vanny would have slipped it to somebody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I will say I was just watching our What Really Happened video from last season, and out of the start off the last season, people didn't really understand how the shred worked. They thought that who they shredded would very much go home, and that's very much not the case at all. Usually, the person you're shredding is safe, and someone else is getting hurt. Then an ally of theirs is getting hurt because of that. Um, I think the next development that players need to understand with access is that yes, you need to strategize and you need to figure out how you're safe and you need to know how the shred works and that being shredded is not really the worst thing. It's sometimes really good for you because then you are eligible for the envelope. But the next iteration is you got to keep track of who is getting what envelopes so you know who has the final two passes, who has a key. Because when it gets down to crunch time, you need to figure out, do I need to take those people out in order to get myself a key? Do I need to threaten to take them out in order to try to get them to give me a key or a final two pass? Or do I work with them and hope they get an extra and then I get a key or final two pass that way? And
Yeah.
that is still, I think, a piece that a lot of players haven't figured out with access quite yet. Um, so hopefully
Hmm.
that's the next iteration. A new alliance is also born right after the challenge ends, pretty much, or I think it was the elimination. It's called the Potluck Alliance. Abby, Patty, and Rich, who Abby and Rich are married, and Patty is Abby's mom, and they bring in Cake. They very much feel like they can trust Cake from the last season, and Rich and Cake were very much like, why not work together this season? Everybody thinks we're going to be at each other's throats. Why not turn the tables on that and work together? So this alliance forms, and but the real decision makers this episode, the second round, is the Women's Fallout Shelter Alliance. With the pink team being vulnerable, they really discuss it in the Fallout Shelter Alliance. Who do we want to target? Big names out there to start were Vonnie for being too active and Ramirez for not being active enough. And they quickly decide the threat is more so on Vonnie. So they ask ZZ to go back to the blue team and to get the entire blue team to vote to shred Ramirez so that Vonnie might get eliminated because Ramirez is probably the only other person that would vote for Vonnie. ZZ, with having the vulnerable disadvantage, has to join the pink team in the elimination, but she has three of her allies in here, so it turns into a kind of a blessing for her. Um, they all discuss. We're all gonna give our access cards to Cake. Cake was more than happy to get a burn. Cake was very suspicious. This is how you get advantages, which she was right to a degree. She wouldn't get it, but she would be able to decide who to give the advantages to. So she was right in that that aspect, and she would give her access card to ZZ. At first, Vonnie really works on Aiden. They were really vibing with each other. I think they might have even known each other before the game. It kind of seemed like Aiden was hinting at that later in the season when he was deciding who to put on jury. But Aiden ultimately gets the vibe that Vonnie is the target if you go to the next slide. And so he pretty much tells Vonnie, like, I'm not sure about this. And he goes to ZZ and makes a deal with ZZ. ZZ agrees, if you give me your access card, I will give you it back. And so she does that. Vonnie then seeks greener pastures because Aiden is not willing to work with him. Aiden was more or less content to tell Vonnie, if you vote for me, that's great. I'm not going to vote for you to start out, but if I get an extra access card, I will save you, which I think was a good strategic play. Aiden, I love Aiden. Aiden had such a good head on his shoulders strategically, even though he was learning, but he was not afraid to just point blank tell you how it is. And I think that really worked for him in a lot of ways. Here with Vonnie, it didn't, but I think later on it really works for him. So Vonnie and Ramirez talk. They're going to exchange access cards. So this is what the game's kind of looking like until Patty decides to be a little mischievous. Go to Vonnie and say, hey, I'm feeling in trouble. Do you want to exchange access cards? And gets Vonnie, you can go ahead to the next slide, gets Vonnie to give her his access card instead of to Ramirez, which is just wild. Um, Vonnie thinks that they're going to vote in a circle, Vonnie, Ramirez, and Patty, and potentially get like a ton of access cards. Vonnie thinks he's getting a bunch of access cards. I don't know why or how he believed that. Ramirez, though, goes inactive, never submits his decision of who to give his access card to, so it gets randomized and it ends up going to Aiden, but it doesn't matter because the blue team shredded it. So with that, ZZ was able to save Aiden and keep her word, and Cake ended up giving out the final two access cards, saving Abby. Patty had gotten Vonnie, so Patty was already safe, and then also saving Ramirez, sending Vonnie out the door. Pete, what did you think of the gameplay this round?
So this round coming into it is classic veterans outsmarting the newbies. Kudos to Aiden for picking up that he was out of the loop and finding a way to take another newbie on with him and switch. But it was a masterclass by the girls of just, hey, like, trust us, you're going to be good. And Ramirez and Vonnie, I mean, Ramirez wasn't as active, but Vonnie had no one to turn to at that point. I mean, when the moment Aiden said, hey, it's just not happening, you kind of felt bad for Vonnie because you're like, there's no hope at this point.
Mm. You definitely hate to see somebody who is loving the game and trying really hard to learn the game and play hard go home over somebody who really was not even on Discord. But at the same time, like from their perspective, yeah, Vonnie was a bigger threat. Like Vonnie was unpredictable and hard to like work with because of what he was doing with his mouth. So
Mhm.
yeah, I understand the decision to keep Ramirez, but it's definitely hard from a production standpoint.
Yeah, I think ultimately Vonnie just ends up sharing too much information with too many people, burns too many bridges in that first round, and that leads to his elimination. I think if he had more time, I think he was starting to rebuild. If he had more time, potentially he could have recovered at least enough. I think it also doesn't help that on the blue team, like he had been targeting Elijah, and so why would Elijah want to save him? Um, even if he, even if Elijah wanted Abby and Cake out, like Vonnie said his name, they didn't, and they're trusting that his lie that he wasn't targeting them. So why would he go for them at this point? Hendy was pushing, especially when there was some paranoia about what is Patty doing, talking to Vonnie. Because Patty never told her alliance about this, and it almost really burned her in a few ways. She's able to recover from it, but it, as word was getting around that Patty was doing this, Hendy was pushing. We should just try to get Abby out, which was a good move, but no one was willing to actually do that. The majority of his team was never going to do that. With this, Vonnie has to choose to give an access card to
Or an
Ramirez,
envelope.
or yeah, an envelope, which actually I don't know why I have all those people there because they all voted for Ramirez to be shredded.
Yeah.
Um, My bad. So Ramirez was the only one eligible to get an envelope. Vonnie gives an envelope with three keys to Ramirez, which was supposed to be a hint. That's a lot of keys. Something is going on because normally you get one or two keys, and the key ceremony is like halfway through the game. But Ramirez, of course, has no idea what he's doing, and so he has no idea what that signifies.
This is also another of those situations where the vote was unanimous for the shred. So they should all know who has stuff. So
Yep.
at this point, everyone should know that ZZ and Ramirez have hardware, and nobody that I saw talked about it.
Yep.
I just say I think it's also worth pointing out, at least early on, that while some people understood Abby and Rich were married from previous seasons, not everybody picked up on the fact that Patty and Abby were related. And so the girls were really able to weaponize that against the boys, where the boys thought they may have ends with Patty against the Abby Cake Alliance that they just never were going to have.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. Also with getting extra access cards, Cake and ZZ had to choose a burn. Cake ended up choosing the ping one. The number that she chose had the ping, which is basically you can play this to production tell us who you want to spy on or ping, and we'll tell you if they have a key or final two pass. I think you had to choose. Do you want to know if they have a key or a final two pass? And we would tell you yes or no if they had one, at least one. Um, and so Cake had to give this away. Cake gives this to Abby. Abby's her number one ally at this point. Easily gives it to Abby. ZZ gets the hidden access card, which basically is kind of like a hidden immunity idol slash safety without power kind of advantage. It's supposed to operate like a hidden immunity idol, but in Access operates more like a safety without power. And ZZ and Ben, for whatever reason, were vibing over the live Zoom call and had a chat afterwards as she was getting this advantage that she had to give away. So gives it to Ben. I think Cake does ask ZZ, "Why'd you give it to Ben and not me?" And ZZ was like, "Oh, Ben asked," just something like that, and talked to Ben about it, or had just talked to Ben last. So Ben ends up getting this advantage here.
Yeah, I'll make a comment here that ZZ and Agent had a very similar conversation over video call the first round. They were vibing, they were tight, and ZZ genuinely wanted to go deep in the game with Agent, and then Agent flipped on ZZ,
Mhm.
and ZZ had to retaliate. Ben is now becoming the next Agent here. ZZ and Ben are tight, they're locked in just based on social lives and common interests over video call, and they want to go deep together, and you can see this because hidden access card is going to Ben, which is honestly
Mhm.
a really impressive power in the game.
Mhm. Yes. And I believe that sums up this round. So Ramirez has some keys. Abby has an advantage. Ben has an advantage. ZZ has a final two pass. No disadvantages out at this point in the game. Next, we have the Missions Impossible Challenge. We had this last season. Um, and basically, there are different legs that you could choose to do as a team, assign different players to. I think for this one, there wasn't a whole lot of discussing who wants to do what. People just kind of picked. Was that kind of your vibe, Cam?
It, yeah, the intention of having an extra leg beyond the number of people participating. So there was five people participating, six legs, and you could choose which leg to do. However, people obviously therefore should understand that if you were the only person of all three teams to do a leg, then you automatically win. There wasn't any discussion at all about what leg might be less popular than the other legs. I think Hendy might have mentioned it briefly as the only person to consider that idea.
Hmm.
And that worked out for Hendy actually, because Hendy was the only person to do the prediction leg. So an easy first place there.
Hmm. Yeah, and as you can see in the total lines there, the blue team again wins. So this was a close challenge. Blue team gets all second places, and then Hendy's first. The pink team gets three first places, but Patty ends up getting last place in the Boggle challenge, and Ramirez doesn't even submit, which means he gets a penalty fourth place, even though there was only two people in the challenge. The rules was if you did not submit, you get fourth place. Um, and then the green team just ends up getting three third places and only two first places, giving them 11 points. So the green team, for the first time, will go into an access ceremony, and the blue team, once again, is choosing who to shred. The pink team gets a break. Um, so once again, we have the girls in alignment in an alliance on the pink team. You can move on. The book club alliance still going strong. And on the green team, we have the non-toxic alliance. We have Alex tight with Ben and Alex tight with Dylan. And basically, Dylan is like, okay, I need to pick a target. I'm not going to choose Lulu this time. I'm going to trust Lulu and I'm going to go after Ben. And Ben finds out about this and blows it up. As you go to the next slide, they have a knockout, drag out fight in the main chat, which you can read a little bit of it here. You can also go to the Discord server and you can read it yourself. It's all archived for you to enjoy. And you can see this was on January 17th there, so you can just scroll up to that date. With them fighting, uh, pretty much everybody on the cast was like, well, why not? Not everyone, but everyone on the blue team was like, why not keep both of them in? Because they're going to fight, and that's great for us. That's drama for us. Makes the green team less united. And for the green team, they viewed Alex as one, a drag in challenges, but two, a social threat because they realized that Dylan trusted Alex the most out of everyone else on their team, and Ben also trusted Alex the most. So Alex was actually a very difficult target to gun for, but that's who they decided to try to go for. So what they do to go about this is they basically all just try to talk to Ben and to Dylan. And eventually they find out that Alex is also targeting Doug. So that's just further motivation. So they all try to talk to Ben and to Dylan and try to get them to give their access cards to one of them. Lulu ends up being the most successful here with this as she gets pretty much everyone's access card except for Alex's. Dylan had gone to Alex early on and said, let's exchange access cards. Alex agrees. Then Alex says, I would love to get Doug out. But Alex basically just sits back after that, hoping that him and Dylan are just locked in and will be fine. Lulu obviously had to give her access card away, gives it to Doug. As long as it's within the alliance, it doesn't matter. And as long as their alliance got at least one extra access card, they're all safe. If they got two, they could dictate pretty much what happened this round. The blue team tried to find out what are you doing with what are you guys doing? What's the plan? We want to be a help, and we want to go along with whatever you guys want. But the green team just, for whatever reason, ends up not giving them any information. And so they all kind of throw out different shred votes, shred marks, for their own reasons. Let's see, I took notes here. ZZ pushed for Alex to be shredded in order to target Dylan. She wasn't sure if it would eliminate him, but at least it would hinder him because she knew Alex and Dylan were tight. And if he stayed, she was fine with it. But if he went, then the liability that Dylan would be gone, especially because Dylan had a lot of information on ZZ and didn't want that to get out. Jason decides to shred Doug in order to make him eligible for the envelope. They had been developing a bond and wanted to try to get him an envelope, hoping that would help him out later in the game. Tyler just trusted Dylan the least and didn't hear a solid plan on what to do, so he just shreds Dylan. And then hoping to keep the Ben and Dylan drama in and thinking that Ben was most likely to keep Alex, both Elijah and Hendy vote to shred Ben there. And so with that, Ben's access card gets shredded. And with that, then Alex and Ben and Rich are vulnerable. Lulu gets to decide who all to keep. And as we see on the next slide, Lulu obviously saves Rich and then saves Ben, able to get out her target in Alex.
This was a frustrating round, I would also just say, because Dylan's number one ally was Alex, and yet Dylan didn't give his access card to Alex. Like that was the most confusing play, I think, maybe even this whole season. Just give it to your ally.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and as we'll see, Dylan then quits the game the next morning after finding out what happened, saying that they were horrible people for taking out Alex um, because of his disability and stuff that you can, it's pretty obvious. Um, but Alex was actually a huge threat and was very difficult to take out. This was a surgical move that they were performing. And Dylan, if he wanted Alex to stay in the game, all he had to do was vote for him. And then he would have gotten everything that he wanted. Him and Alex would have both been in, Ben would have been gone, and all the people that he liked would have still been in the game. It would have been everything that his heart would have desired if he had just followed through with his actual loyalty. Pete, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this round was a classic round of overthinking mixed with the formula of a lot of us who are in the world community have our brains wired of, well, if I'm not liked by other people, I'm going to get the votes. So from Dylan's standpoint, even voting for Lulu, he kind of went in with the impression of, I'm going to get shredded, so it doesn't matter anyways. In actuality, that's not how Access works. So it's like, why would I want to get rid of someone that's going to be a cancer to the group? Great, great for me. I mean, it's a game saver for Ben, which was great for Ben and great for us on production because we wanted to see the hack be used. But we did feel for both Dylan and Alex because we're like, all it takes is one other ally in this game to get fair. And Dylan, as sad as he was the one who sacrificed his ally.
Mhm. Yeah. With that, Ben, Dylan, and Doug were eligible to receive the envelope. Alex felt betrayed by Dylan, was still had felt some ties to Ben, and so gives Ben the envelope, giving Ben three keys, which I also was curious. Ben is closely aligned with Cake and ZZ. I was looking to see if Ben was going to tell them. I think he mentioned he got keys. I don't think he mentioned he got three. And even if he did, none of them put two and two together that something was that was a lot of keys to get, and that if three keys are coming out with each envelope, then there's so many keys, and the key ceremony is supposed to be so far away, something's up. But none of them realize it at this point. Um,
I also say that I mean, if you look at the last seasons, it's hard to see how many keys were given out in each envelope unless you watch like the what really happened video. So, like for all they know, there could be envelopes that have powers or envelopes that have nothing. Like they don't know for sure.
yeah.
But three keys is definitely a lot, so there should be some suspicion when only one key is needed per person in the game.
Mhm. Yes. And once again, Lulu gets a burn with getting all the access cards, and she gets ineligibility. This means the next time that she's up for in an access ceremony up for elimination, even if she becomes eligible for the envelope, she would not actually be able to receive it. She would become ineligible instead. So could be a real dampener to her game. Depends on when this comes out. Um, ends up not becoming all that much of an issue for her. But let's move on to the next round. So right now we have one out from each team. We didn't have a red team this season, so all of the one red team wasn't just being destroyed all throughout as each team loses one. But after Alex's elimination, Dylan felt like it was best for him to quit. We stand behind that decision, and we hope that Dylan is doing well. With that, we go on to our next challenge, which was a memory challenge. They got to see this map two different times. Not everyone took us up on those opportunities. And they had to try to memorize as much as they could. And then we asked them questions, and they had like five lives. I think we named them. One was Rusty the dog. And they had to choose where to send these different lives in the map. They could only lump two of them together at a time. And based on the clue, certain areas were going to have zombie infestations in the everything and everyone that was there. And I think if you go to the next slide, nope, I didn't put it. But the blue team once again dominates this challenge, does really, really well. And the pink team, yeah, the pink team ends up not doing as well. leading to them going into an access ceremony again. So the green team is sitting pretty. Once again, it's just the four of them now with the non-toxic alliance. But Ben has the keys and the power here in this group, which is an interesting dynamic. In the next slide, we have a new alliance. It's called the Vision Alliance. Doug had been getting close to Hendy and Jason, I think especially talking about football and other common interests and strategies in the game. Jason had already tried to give Doug an envelope. So they decided to formalize their partnership in this game through this alliance. And I think actually the Vision was a wrestling term because they had bonded, at least Hendy and Doug had bonded over wrestling. Or a wrestler, I think was the Vision. I'm not sure. I don't watch wrestling. So on the blue team here, once again, we have the book club. And then go ahead to the pink team. So on the pink team, we have the three ladies who were part of the Fallout Shelter Alliance. And also, as soon as they lose, they all decide to do the same thing that the blue team did, form an alliance together and target the inactive player in Ramirez. So they form a new alliance, the pink team alliance, or the not so pinks, I think they called it, looping Aiden into the group, and they agree together we should just target Ramirez. He's inactive. He's not going to help us in challenges. He didn't submit in the one previous challenge that they probably would have won if he did. And so they agree, let's just all give our access cards to Cake. Cake will save Aiden, and then Ramirez has to vote for one of them, and he's done. Ramirez, once again, doesn't submit an access card, doesn't give us a decision, so it's randomly decided, and it ends up going to Patty. So you can go ahead to the next slide. With this being a pretty open and shut case that Ramirez was going, Abby, Patty, and Cake all individually approach ZZ, their fellow Fallout Shelter Girls Alliance. Hey, can you give me your shred vote or get your team to shred me so I can become eligible for the envelope? And ZZ tells each of them, yeah, I'll do that. And doesn't tell them all that they're all trying to do the same thing. Oh yes, it gets worse. So let's back up. Let's back up. Let's focus on this. Pete, what did you think about this strategic play to just agree to all of them? Yeah, I'll do what you want and not tell the others.
So first and foremost, before I get to that, to any future access players, we require you to be on camera. If you choose not to be on camera, do not apply. If you get casted, we're going to throw a hissy fit. We do not like people that don't play challenges. You are required to come on camera. I don't care how you look. I had to take on camera in a planking contest. No one wanted to see that. Absolutely nobody. We know how that went. But if you're going to apply, be okay with being on camera. That being said, this is kind of where I felt like ZZ's downfall somewhat started, because up until this point, I had thought she had done really well socially, and this move was kind of her first big head scratcher in a series of many head scratchers, to where, especially with Abby and Patty being relatives, to tell all three girls yes, it made no sense.
Yeah, you're trying to cater to everyone's needs, make everyone happy, so you can potentially have good allies to work with. But especially since you're in an all-girls alliance, just tell them. Like, it's not like you're all separate. Like, they're on the same team. They're all in an alliance together. Like, just say, hey, I can only give it to one of you. Let me know amongst yourselves who I should give it to.
Yeah. I think they all would have been very understanding, and then it would have caused the infighting among them rather than with her. She could have even just gone to her team and been like, hey, like she's in a threesome alliance. Elijah, you vote for Patty. I'll vote for Abby. Jason, you vote for Cake. Could you do me that solid? And that would help build trust with these people. And I think they would have been like, sure, whatever. I'll build trust with people. I don't care. She even had Tyler that was dead loyal to her, like loyal to only her. So she had 4 votes that she could have controlled this round. She chose not to do anything. And then she has a conversation with Cake. Cake, I don't know how she does it. but Cake somehow just turns on some magical charm and just has this knack of just getting people to give her their final two pass or their key or whatever it is that she needs to make it through to the next round and just come out on top. And Cake gets ZZ's final two pass from her. Um,
I think there was some talk of like a knowledge is power kind of thing at play or something, right? And Cake
I
threatened
say,
somehow to use some power, and ZZ was like, "Okay, well, I'll just give it to you anyway."
I say, and I think CZ two. At one point, the thought with this too was, well, maybe I can use this as a target on Cake to say I know for sure that she has it, and then use this to get Cake out, and hopefully she just gives it back to me.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and I think Cake was riffing off of the ping advantage, uh, kind of saying that like, oh, I know someone has this advantage and could and probably embellishing that they could take this thing from you. And I think it was sort of not really getting around that ZZ had it. There was definitely suspicion if ZZ had something from the first challenge, from the first round, or being involved in multiple rounds. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, uh, yeah. I was so sad and disappointed when ZZ did this. But yeah, ZZ felt like I can get it back, and it gives me the strategic option to throw Cake under the bus in the future, which it could have, but uh, I wouldn't have been what I would have done. Once again, the pink team doesn't really talk to the blue team other than the girls talking to ZZ trying to get the access cards. Everyone realizes that it's an open shot case, that Ramirez is probably going. I think Hendy votes to shred Ramirez's access card because he's hoping that something maybe happens that Abby or Patty go, or really Abby, that Abby goes. Um, Everyone else kind of gives that random. ZZ just loves Patty. They work in a similar field. Knows they know what each other go through, and I think at this point ZZ was like, I would sacrifice my own game for Patty. I would die for her. Just was head over heels for Patty at this point in the game. Elijah, I think, similarly was building some trust with Patty, or thought that by shredding Patty, it would hurt Abby. Um, uh, yeah. So Patty ends up getting shredded, which really doesn't do anything. In the end, Cake still has an extra access card that she uses to save Abby over Ramirez on the next slide. And so Ramirez goes. Um, I felt like right after this, Aiden was like, "Oh, it's like nothing even changed," and I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty accurate." Uh, so we're not bitter. Ramirez gives out the another envelope. This ends up giving it to Aiden. This was based off of his trust rankings because again, Ramirez was inactive. Um,
And
and
for the record, we cannot confirm nor deny the character in his picture is actually Ramirez because we never actually saw Ramirez's face.
yeah, I feel pretty confident that's not him. But yeah, so Aiden, I think, was third on Ramirez's trust list, and in fact, since Ramirez had three keys, they were distributed one by one to the top three people on his trust list on the next slide, and so they ended up going to Abby, Doug, and then Aiden. If Abby had just gotten a shred vote, Abby would have been the one with three keys, and Abby would have known this is weird, and probably would have done something about it. Aiden, once again, the person kind of on the outs of the team, gets all the power in having all the extra keys with that. Cake with getting the extra access cards, once again, gets a burn, and this time it's the data leak. And they were very weirded out by how that result happened. Understandably, because Patty got an access card and that was weird. And like but then Cake was expecting to have all the access cards and to have to divvy them out, and she was obviously saving Aiden first, uh, and would cut Ramirez. But that's not what happened. And so they were very suspicious about what happened. They were also suspect of ZZ, I think already. And so Cake and Abby are like, let's just play it right away. Cake was like, here's the data leak, Abby. Let's just play it right away. So the data leak is played. This exposes what everyone's decisions from this last round. All the blue team who they decided to shred, and on the pink team who they gave their access card to. Here you can even see, if you go back real quick, Cake commenting about how the votes ended up coming out. Ben saying this is messy, and Aiden saying that was much more split than I would imagine. On the next slide is just Cake and Abby talking about how ZZ played us. Cake starts sharing all this information about ZZ, giving her the final two pass, and that ZZ might be targeting Cake for this, and also that Ben has the hidden access card. All this information starts coming out between Abby and Cake because of this, and this is the real falling out of Abby, of pretty much the Girls Alliance. This was pretty much the nail on the coffin for it. Pete, what are your thoughts on the fall of ZZ here?
As I say, just one thing to touch on within the Girls Alliance, at least very early on, there was just a very strong duo of Cake and Abby. It was kind of one of those frenemies of game respects game. Both girls knew of the other's past and what they were capable of, and they said, "Let's run it." And up until this point, they were tight as thieves. And I mean, this really was kind of okay, if these other girls want to play around, even to the extent of Patty. It's like, if Patty wants to play, Patty can pack her bags. We've sent people home before, we'll do it again. So it was exciting to see, and the hope was it would open up the game just a little bit more, especially with Aiden getting the third key.
Yeah, and I really thought though the alliance of Cake, ZZ, and Ben, they were in a trio together. I really thought
Hmm.
they were going to run this whole game. If they had stuck
Yep.
together, I think they would have run this whole game. They knew where all the bodies were buried. They knew about all the advantages. They pretty much knew about where all the envelopes were going for the most part. They had all the intel. Cake knew about Patty being related. ZZ knew about all the dynamics on her team. Ben knew about all the alliances on his team. And they were not really looked at as threats all that much. ZZ was very much trusted. Cake was very much trusted on her team. Ben was on the outs of his, but like he could have flipped that around, I believe, and he could have just gone against them, um, and easily jumped ship into ZZ and Cake's plans. Um, but because they end up falling out here, they all kind of fall to the bottom of the trust list. ZZ and Cake were very much, and Ben were very much top tier of the trust list and even strategic rankings. And then after this falling out, they end up slowly sliding to the bottom. With the next challenge, this was on Survivor 48, I believe, where you had to pick balls and you wanted to not get the yellow balls. First team to three yellow balls is eliminated, and the teams could talk to each other. And so the green team early on realized they were going to get a yellow ball unless they made some deals with the other teams. So Doug and Lulu especially went to Hendy and to Patty and were talking with both of them, trying to cut deals, and it worked. They ended up not getting any balls for the challenge, but then they eventually became the Kingmakers because of that, or not the Kingmakers. They ended up having the decision of basically who was going to lose this challenge because of it, and the blue team had more members, so they decided that the blue team needed to go into elimination again, which Hendy was upset about that. And you can go to the next slide where they talk this through. Um, and Rich ends up taking the blame or tries to. Hendy doesn't believe any of it, and the blue team doesn't believe any of it. You can pause this and read it for yourself, but this ends up really burning Doug and Lulu's relationship with Hendy, and kind of helps Rich's relationship with Hendy in a weird way. Not sure why that worked out, but it did. So the green team ends up winning the challenge because of this, um, and because they agree to do whatever plan the blue team wants for their shred votes. So here the status of the green team again. It's the non-toxic kind of versus Ben, but they're all very much even Steven at this point. The girls versus Aiden on the pink team. And then on the next slide, It's the blue team with the book club, and Tyler, he's had enough. He tells his blue team, I'm willing to fall on the sword for you guys. You can let me be taken out. So Tyler once again becomes the target for this team. If you go to the next slide, and they decide we can vote in a circle and we can get Tyler's access card shredded, and then nobody has to get a burn and something bad happened to them potentially, which I think was actually a bad idea. I don't think they had quite figured out. Well, just as easy knew, but the others didn't know or care to get burns at this point because they didn't want to risk getting something bad. ZZ also really played with the idea of, do I just vote for Tyler to save him? Um, and ends up just going with the plan. Elijah approaches Rich. Can you vote to shred me so I can get eligible for the envelope? And then Hendy comes to him and tells him the plan on the next slide of give 2 votes to Tyler so that Tyler's access card is shredded, and then throw one on me, Hendy, and throw one on Jason, so that us two are eligible for the access card. Um, and so this is how they kind of divvied up the votes. Rich really went back and forth. Do I go with Hendy's plan or Elijah? He ends up going with Hendy's plan, meaning that Tyler's access card was shredded. Tyler gets eliminated as the only one without access. And on the next slide, Tyler had to choose who to give the envelope to, ends up giving it to Jason over Hendy. If Rich had voted for Elijah, Hendy would have gotten the keys, the envelope here and the keys, and Hendy would have been the one deciding. And maybe things shake out differently with this key ceremony that comes up directly afterwards. Before we get into that, Cam, what are your thoughts on this round?
I mean, I would say in general, like Tyler falling on the sword was expected. The blue team was very quick to just accept that. I mean, ZZ contemplated keeping him, but I don't think there was any real chance of that happening. Teams are basically even at this point now, which is exciting. That's kind of the best case scenario, I guess, for production when you have 4-4-4 on the teams. And there's clearly a powerhouse player on each team. Like ZZ is kind of running the blue team still. The green team is kind of the most split because Ben has the power in terms of hardware, but the other 3 are all in an alliance that are kind of pushing to get Ben out if they lose. And then the pink team, they're a tight 4. But the girls are definitely running that. So it's very much up in the air. Anybody at this point could win the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pete, did you have thoughts? Okay. I think also if Tyler had not fallen on the sword and just done nothing again this round, I think he survives. I think Hendy goes. And I think Tyler probably would have been better off for the blue team in the end. Tyler had played before in season 1 with Abby. And because he knows Abby, he knows Rich and he knows Patty. He would have had connections. He would have been someone that was viewed as someone to be picked up, rather than Hendy, who had tried to build bridges with people and had them burned already and stuff like that. Tyler has just sat back and let the game happen to him. I think Tyler probably ends up going somewhat deep into this game kind of by accident, just by doing nothing and just by being there. I don't think he makes the final 6 or the end game, but I think Tyler really had a chance of going pretty deep in this individual phase here if he had just decided to stay. But it was best for him to leave. He had gotten what he wanted out of the game. He was happy to take the fall for his team, especially since he wasn't able to help as much in the challenges, and he thought they all deserved it. With the key ceremony, Abby and Doug both had a key. They were safe. Then Ben, Jason, and Aiden all had 3 keys. So they were safe, and they would decide who to save as well from the rest of the players. You can go ahead to the next slide. So they each got to pick, and this is the order from left to right that they got to pick in. So Ben was first, and then Jason was second. They ended up picking, you can go to the next slide. Ben saved Cake because they had the relationship. They were still tight despite the falling out with ZZ, which the green team was like, whoa, you saved someone from not our team first. Okay. Jason saves Elijah. his number one, obviously, which Ben and Cake were, I think, number ones at this point as well, or at least Cake was Ben's number one. Next, Ben saves Lulu, the next person that he trusted. Aiden saves Zizi because they had worked together the round that Zizi had joined the pink team and trusted her. Aiden would have saved Jason if he had to, as his number one at that point, but he didn't have to. Jason ends up saving Hendy, didn't want his blue team members to go, and then Aiden had to make the final call here. He's not going to save Rich over his pink teammate Patty, who he had been bonding with, and so Rich has had been in all sorts of positions with the key ceremony, on the verge, being saved at the last minute in his first season, having keys and extra keys in the last season, and now this season not even making it through. Um, yeah, Cam, thoughts?
This, this is another situation. You have two greens, two pinks, and three blues up for elimination, and you have two of each teams picking. This just shows ZZ's powerhouse of a social game
Mhm.
getting chosen by another team, like over a teammate of theirs. And Aiden and Patty weren't super close yet, but
Mhm.
they were on the same team. So you could easily see some bad blood developing if you don't save your own teammate this early on. But ZZ's just doing great in this game right now.
Which I think the green team, there was a little bit of bad blood for not saving Lulu and Rich here, but um, it doesn't make all that much difference. As in our next challenge, eliminated players had the opportunity to come back. And so it was basically, oh yeah, here's our individual phase with everybody. Um, and we can move on. And with Rich being eliminated, he had to give an envelope, a new set of envelopes. We started over with the envelopes. Gave the first envelope to Lulu. He could give it to anyone in the game. He gave it to Lulu. She gets a key. So she is pretty well set for the next phase of the game. The eliminated players, Agent and Rich, fought it out to get back in the game. This was a really back and forth challenge, very evenly matched. Rich just manages to get it out, pull it off before Agent does, and there you can see Rich. I think that's him putting on either the second to last or the last dice there, as the challenge was stacking dice with cups over your hands. But Abby ultimately wins the challenge once again, dominating these tactile challenges. And you can go to the next slide. So Abby is safe there, as you can see with the green background behind her. And then we have three major alliances. There's plenty of other alliances out there, but the three main ones was the book club on the blue team with the three players there, Jason, Elijah, and Zizi. Non-toxic on the green team with Lulu, Doug, and Rich. And then the potluck with Cake, Patty, and Abby, and also Rich. So Rich was very much a uniting force between the green teams and the pink team, green team and the pink team. And with that, the early targets were supposed to be the blue team members, or at least that's what a lot of people thought. And the potluck especially talked. It was like, let's just take out blue team member. They're the big threats. They're the ones coming for us, and they were. Andy and Elijah had been saying their names. Even Jason, I think, was wanting to take out Cake and Abby. Um, uh, However, and this is the voting structure that they had agreed with. They would all vote for Cake, and they would also bring Ben in for Cake and Ben to exchange, and for Cake to get his access card. And then Cake would save Patty and Rich, and they would all be safe, and that wouldn't be a problem. Um, However, uh, well, we'll get to the however. Next is the new alliances: Rich, Elijah, and ZZ. Elijah just kind of goes crazy, making a bunch of alliances. Rich, Elijah, and ZZ form an alliance together. Rich and Elijah had been tight. ZZ and Elijah had been tight. Let's just bring them all together. ZZ, Lulu, Doug, Elijah, and Abby. I think this was mainly like Abby, Elijah, Doug, and Lulu were at the top of the first challenge. They were the most trusted in the beginning of the game. And so they wanted to form an alliance together, or at least Elijah did. And then they were like, but you're close to ZZ too, just bring her in. Like we know that's something else you have going on, so why not bring that in? But these top two were very much fake alliances. even this third one, Zap, ZZ, Aiden, and Patty, they at least discussed how to give access cards to each other. They would both give to Aiden. Aiden would save Patty because ZZ wanted to be eligible for an envelope. Um, in the end, though, all of these alliances ended up being fake, and the true alliance born this round was the Elderly Accessible Alliance, as Patty names it, with Rich, Doug, and Patty. They all agreed to vote for Patty. Patty would save Doug, and then or would give Doug her access card, and then would save Rich later on. And this was the true powerhouse, especially because when everything had gone down with the falling out of ZZ, Cake had mentioned to Patty, Cake had mentioned to Abby, I don't know if we can trust Patty. There's just a hint of doubt there, despite knowing that Patty was Abby's mom. Of course, Abby tells Patty this, and Patty finds an opportunity to strike. And so Patty starts pushing for Cake to go. Before we get to that, we have the blue team voting structure here. ZZ wanted to be eligible for an envelope, so Hendy and Jason agreed to give their access cards to Elijah. Elijah would vote for Jason, and ZZ would vote for Hendy. And then Elijah would save ZZ. Aiden trying to stay true to the Zap Alliance, was giving his access card to Patty because of that. But as Abby, and this ends up leaving it down to Abby and who she would shred. Everyone had plans of how to keep themselves safe. Oh, and Doug and Rich tell Lulu, just give your access card to Doug and we'll make sure you're safe. And she trusted them. As Abby considered her targets, Rich was at the top of the list. They had been talking pregame. And Abby was trying to prove to Rich, and Rich was trying to prove to Abby who was better in access. She could take him out right here and prove once and for all that she was better. ZZ was another target because of the falling out that had happened. ZZ was a threat, and they wanted to take her out by shredding Elijah's access card. Or they could try to take out Cake, which Patty really pushed for. Go ahead to the next slide. I'm not sure what's coming up here. Okay. Because of the targets, there's some talk going around about the targets being ZZ or Rich. Because of that, ZZ got really nervous and so asked Jason, would you just give me your access card so that I'm safe and I don't have to worry about being vulnerable? Even though I won't get an envelope, that's fine. I'll fight for it another day. Was probably a good move on her part to just be safe. At the same time, the blue team missed an opportunity to try to get an envelope and really miss out because of that, as we'll see here. Abby ultimately decides between Patty's pushing to take out Cake and then Rich hears that he might be a target or Cake might be a target. Let me push Cake under the bus because it's not me. I know this isn't the best thing for me, but it's better than me going. And through all that encouragement, Abby decides to shred Ben in order to take Cake out of the game. And go to the next slide. Doug saves Lulu. Patty saves Aiden. And then Patty has Rich's life in her hands and Cake's life in her hands. And she decides to keep Rich and take out Cake because of that little bit of doubt that Cake had. With that, Cake has to decide to give the envelope to either Rich or Aiden. Could have given it to Lulu, but Lulu had the ineligibility disadvantage, so she couldn't. Cake ultimately, in being eliminated, Cake reaches out to both Abby and Ben, trying to figure out what happened. Abby lies to her and says, Ben must have done it. And so Cake goes out thinking, the potluck was loyal to me. I'm going to give Rich this envelope. And not only that, Rich gets 2 keys here. Not only that, Cake has to give away the final 2 pass. Cake gives the final 2 pass to Rich as well. So Merry Christmas to Rich. He could have been out. Instead, he has a happy Merry Christmas getting all this gear from Cake on her way out. Rich also decides to thank Patty for saving him by immediately giving her one of the extra key that he gets. So they both have one now. And I think, oh, and then there's also the burns that go out. Doug gets the jury shred, and at this point in the game, he trusts Rich. He's in the Elderly Accessible Alliance with Rich. Rich is more of his number one, so he gives the jury shred to Rich. And then Patty also gets one, which is the public reveal disadvantage, which we'll see play out in the next round. And I think that's it.
Yep.
Cam, Pete, what do you think about how this played out?
Yeah, so I say a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, shout out to both Vanny and Agent. Even though they are both eliminated early, both of them really did stick around. We feel sort of bad for Vanny; he couldn't find dice in time. But going into that initial elimination face-off between Rich and Agent, we honestly thought Agent might come back into the game and spread a lot of chaos.
Hmm.
It was definitely an unexpected elimination for Rich. Early on, he kind of just played a very quiet game. He knew his threat level would be big after last season, so he kind of came into it quietly. And when he didn't get a key and he was eliminated, it was rather shocking for him. But coming back into the game, I mean, it was almost a blessing in disguise. It kind of took some of his threat level away. I also feel like this is kind of where you begin to see Abby's competition arc re-kick off for this season, because that initial challenge of Agent versus Rick took a hot minute between the two of them trying to stack the dice, and then Abby came in and said, "Hold my beer." And she had it done within about, I think it was about 6, 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So her winning safety that round was huge. And I felt like this was really the start of a bunch of different arcs for people, and the decline for others.
Hmm. Yeah, Cam, what'd you think of the strategic decision to target Cake and try to take Cake out here?
Yeah, there's always this question of do you keep a shield around or do you take them out when you have the opportunity? And in this situation, like Cake was very clearly working alongside tightly with the other girls, including Abby and Patty. She was girl strong, and I don't necessarily think it was a smart decision personally. I think taking out Rich would have been the better move there. Definitely a better move for Ben in that situation. But also there was not a lot of fact checking that was happening this round. There was a lot of just things being said and people just trusting it. Especially when it comes to Ben. Like Ben was kind of a little bit MIA, but was also like very clearly aligned with who he said he was aligned with. He wanted to work with ZZ and Cake, but also ZZ kind of started spreading doubt about Cake. ZZ started basically saying, well, if Cake's going to come after me after last round with the data leak, revealing that I didn't actually shred Cake like I said I was going to, then I'm going to just reveal to everybody that Cake manipulated me into giving her my final two pass and said all of this other stuff. So hopefully get the pressure off of me. I think personally it worked. And I think ZZ has a lot more people on her side in this situation. And they took a shot at a big dog in this game and it landed.
Yeah, Abby also had mentioned that as a Forge Master in the previous season, she got to watch Cake's game play out the whole way through and really knew that y people should not trust Cake unless their name was Mac last season. Cake is, I feel like Cake's Mac this season was Abby, and Abby did not pick up on that. And I think Cake would have been undyingly loyal to Abby until Abby did something to cross her. Um, but
Yeah.
I think Cake would have done anything and everything to keep both of them in the game. But Abby just viewed her as an untrustworthy player and probably would have slit her throat at some point, which Cake may have. But I think Cake would have been more loyal than cutthroat with Abby. Everyone else, including Patty and Rich, had to worry about Cake. And it was in Patty's best interest and Rich's best interest to take Cake out at some point. Maybe not here, but at some point. Abby, though, I think it was Cake leaving was the worst for Abby over anyone else, and Abby is the one that ends up pulling the trigger here.
I think Cake, or I think Cake's biggest issue also was the fact that she let the ZZ situation take too much power. If
Mhm.
Cake would have just let it run under the bridge, all of a sudden she has a good trio with Ben and ZZ. As you said earlier, they could run the game here. They could easily have gotten votes from Ben and ZZ to Cake in this situation as well. I mean, Ben has the hack. Like Ben could have given that to Cake if he felt Cake was in trouble. So there's a lot of things that could have played out if Cake would have just let what happened with ZZ be bygones. So
Mhm. Yeah, very much so. The next challenge was ration it out. Excuse me. The players were not allowed to talk to each other and had to give out 10 rations to anyone that they wanted in any way that they wanted to. The big highlight from this challenge was that Abby and Patty really wanted to take Rich out, didn't want him to have the power. I wonder if they were also a little confused that they thought that if Rich went over 20, so the goal is to get less than 20 rations. The person closest to it wins. You see Rich here hits the magic number of 19. If you go over 20, if you hit 20 or more rations, then you were out of the challenge. I kind of wonder if Patty and Abby thought there was a subtle chance that maybe you'd be out of the game completely. That was not the case. But either way, they didn't want him to win the challenge, so they stack a whole bunch of their rations on him. They had a similar mindset. ZZ gives one to everybody. If Rich had just gotten one more from anyone else, then he would have been out. I think, though, people for the most part were giving a few here and a few there to people that they wanted to maybe win or felt comfortable with maybe winning, rather than targeting people. As you can see, Doug stacks 10 of all 10 of his on Lulu. And Lulu, I think, who does Lulu do? Lulu spreads it out between Patty and Jason and Doug. So, yep. But Rich ends up winning the challenge, thanks in part to Abby and Patty trying to take him out. But they just pretend like nothing happened and they were trying to help him and everything's cool, Rich, and he's none the wiser. So, um, I think Rich also saw that at this point, um, that he's kind of the middle hinge point between the potluck alliance with Abby and Patty and the non-toxic alliance with Doug and Lulu. This is a great group of five if he could pull it together somehow. With him being in power, Abby, Patty, and or Patty, Doug, and Rich discuss what the plan should be. They come up with the Patty and Lulu voting to exchange access cards, especially with Patty having the public reveal disadvantage. She didn't want to give to somebody that she really closely trusted and give that information out to everyone, even though I don't think it would have mattered all that much. Um, but she decided, I'm fine with everybody knowing that I gave my access card to Lulu. So they decided to exchange. Oh, go back. And then Doug and Abby would also give their access cards to Patty, and Patty would divvy them back out. Um, with this, though, Lulu very much was being dictated, here's the plan. And Lulu was picking up that Rich and Doug and Patty were together, but that Lulu was not included as part of that, even though Patty and all them wanted her included. For whatever reason, they just weren't willing to bring her in quite yet. So Lulu starts figuring out, well, what are some greener pastures? So Lulu goes to Hendy and tells Hendy about the Potluck Alliance because Rich had leaked it to Lulu and Doug at one point. So she tells Hendy, hey, just so you know, Patty is Abby's mom and Abby and Rich are married. Hendy's shocked at this because he didn't know yet. And so that's something he has tucked away in his back pocket. And it's like, even more so why we should be targeting Abby this whole time. I've been saying Abby's name this whole season. Lulu also works on Ben a little bit as well to try to pull him in. But decides, I'm not going to make a big move this round. I'll wait till next round to shake things up. With that, Aiden goes to Patty looking for refuge of where to get safety from this round. He asks Patty if he can give her his access card, and she says, like, I already have plans. Why don't you work with Elijah and ZZ? I have this disadvantage. I don't want people to know that we're tight, even though they had been clearly working together. So Aiden is told to go work with Elijah and ZZ, decides to go to Hendy and Jason because he had a better relationship with them. And they form an alliance. He hits it off with them. This is an alliance called the Illiterates. They decide to vote in a circle together, as you can see. And then Ben also feeling on the outs, decides to hit up the same group of people, but just too little too late and just not as well as Aiden does. And so they agree, let's form another alliance called the Scholars. Hendy was great on picking these names out right off the bat. And if they can save Ben, great, we'll save Ben. But if we can't, oh well, he's the one that goes out and he's the insurance policy for the other three of us. So, they want him to vote for Aiden. So Aiden goes from probably someone that goes out this round to now in a power position, and is doing really well for himself. So we have this new alliance here, which leaves us with Elijah and Zizi. I think Elijah, Zizi, and Jason had all said like we don't want to be seen together. People are like lumping us together. We don't want people to lump us together. Let's try to make new alliances and form other relationships with people. Jason's able to do that with Hendy, Ben, and Aiden. Elijah and Zizi try. Elijah goes to Hendy, and Zizi goes to Patty. Going to the next slide, only for both of them to be like, "Why are you coming to me? Why don't you, Elijah's easy. You should just exchange access together. You're fine. You're not a target." And so in the end, they end up having to just exchange access cards, even though that's not what they wanted to do. Which leaves who is Rich going to target? And Rich, and while everyone had talked about Ben as the easy target, he's probably the one that's going. I think that's who Rich is going to take out. When Rich sat down and thought about it, Hendy and Jason were his biggest threats. That's who he wanted to get out, was either Hendy or Jason. And so he decides to shred Jason. Well, actually, first he talks to Aiden, and he makes sure he didn't want Aiden to be caught in the crossfire. And Aiden tells him, "Oh, I actually am working with Hendy and Jason this round." And Rich is like, "Well, don't, because they might be using you, just like you all are using Ben. And so you should just give your access card to Patty, and Patty will save you." And Patty agrees to it. And Aiden says, "Well, at least can you shred Jason's access card? That way I know if Hendy really was going to give me his. That way I know if I can actually trust them or not." And Rich agrees to this. With this, then ends up with Aiden with an extra access card. He saves Hendy. And then Aiden goes to Patty. Aiden goes to Patty and says, "You should save Ben," hoping that means Doug or Abby will go. Um, and Ben asks Patty, "Am I safe?" And Patty says, "Yeah, you should be good." Um, but Patty then saves Doug and Abby after this, on the next slide. Doug and Abby after this, which means Jason was the last target left that Rich had been targeting. At this point, Aiden goes to Patty and says, "No, actually, just save Jason. Don't save Ben, save Jason." And Patty's like, "Is that what you want? You gave me your access card. I'm willing to do whatever you want with it." "Yes, save Jason." So Patty ends up saving Jason with Aiden's extra access card that he gave her, on the next slide here. And Ben is eliminated. At which point, Ben is pissed. Abby had promised him that he was safe, or at least that was his perception. And at one point, that was true because Aiden had asked for that. And he was pissed at Patty for it, but it was really Aiden that switched it and led to Ben's elimination here over Jason. Um, and with that, his elimination, his access card also dies with him. He would not be able to gift that away. Um, Pete or Cam, what are your thoughts on this?
I was gonna say, uh, for those who have watched multiple seasons now, we promise the hidden access card is not a curse. But that being said, you all need to start learning how to use it. First, we see Jester go out with it last season, and now this season we see Ben go out with it. Um, so I also feel like this starts to really kick off the Lulu and Aiden arcs. I feel like this round was key for both of their games, with Aiden not only branching out away from the Patty Abby circle and kind of creating his own things, but it also gave Lulu a chance to kind of step up at a time where ZZ kind of started to get quiet at this point. Her
Mhm.
arc started to go down, and you really start to see Lulu take off.
Mhm.
Yeah, this kind of highlights a little bit of the kind of trust pattern that we see in this game. I mean, from the beginning, Lulu, Patty, and ZZ were kind of the most trusted across the board for most of the game. And we can see that with who's getting cards stacked on them. Lulu just had a stack on her previously. ZZ had a stack early on. Patty's now getting stacked on again. Like, clearly being trusted in this game gives you a lot of power, especially when it comes to these burns.
Yeah, and while there are definitely challenges and strategic plays to be made in Access, this season especially, it was the social aspect that really won or lost you the game. And if you weren't keeping up on that, then that's when you would start slipping and eventually get eliminated. Which, speaking of Ben being eliminated, he had to give an envelope to one of those who were vulnerable, Doug, Abby, Hendy, or Jason. And he feels like he, Abby had betrayed him and Cake, even though they were trying to be in her camp. Hendy and Jason just betrayed him. Doug's the last person left that he could trust, so he gives it to Doug. And Doug gets a key here and successfully kind of lies about it and gets people to kind of believe, oh, maybe Doug doesn't have it. Um, Patty's public reveal comes out that she gave her access card to Lulu. No one really cared. Um, it didn't really make a dent. And going to the next slide, Patty once again gets another burn and gets the leak advantage, which allows you to look at one player's previous decision from the previous round. And she gives that to Abby, of course. She's going to give it to her daughter. Aiden also gets a burn for getting an extra access card, and this is a game changer one. This is the rewire, is what he gets. Basically, if someone wins the challenge, they get the shred power. The rewire gets to steal that shred power and give it to someone else that you choose. Um, while Aiden was getting close with Hendy and Jason, um, I think Rich also kind of pushing Aiden towards Patty and the closeness of Patty. Um, he ends up giving it to Patty. I think if Hendy and Jason had just tried a little bit harder to really clench that alliance with Aiden and that relationship with Aiden, this whole game is completely changed. Because this rewire really sets the tone and really is the nail in the coffin for pretty much the entire blue team. Whereas if they had just worked on Aiden a little bit more and had gotten that rewire, then the blue team potentially dominates through the end of the game here, and it's a completely different season. Um, so this is and Aiden is very much the person in the middle of all of this. So it's very interesting to see Aiden kingmake to the green and pink alliance side of things rather than to the blue side of things. So here we have our final 10 now with or three green and three pink and four blue team members left. Next is the memory fade challenge, which was like a quiz. And Jason gets the most correct answers and ends up winning the challenge. If you're playing Access, take notes. They will come in handy. So, and Abby and Rich should have known that, and Patty too. And they did end up making some notes, but I don't know, it didn't seem very helpful. But it's easier to take notes as you're going through the game than trying to remember it afterwards. With Jason in power, um, here, and these are the alliances still currently. Go ahead to the next slide. With Jason in power and Aiden knowing that he could trust Hendy, Aiden apologizes to Jason and Hendy that he didn't go with the plan that they had made. He wanted to make sure he wasn't getting played. To make it up to them, him and Hendy are going to lock in. We're just going to exchange access cards and put blinders on and just go with that. And so they do. And kudos to them for being able to actually build a successful relationship across the team dynamics here, especially for them when they are more the ones on the outs. So this is a very interesting dynamic developing here. Next, with Jason in power, Elijah. Sorry, I need to get some water. With Jason in power, Elijah decides to start playing big. he's going to go to Abby, he's going to go to Doug and to Patty, and he's going to try to get them all to give him his access card. He's going to give his access card to Abby. Jason will shred his access card, and all this somehow leads to Abby getting eliminated. In reality, this probably would have just led to him getting eliminated had it actually happened. But uh, Jason's not able to stop him from doing this before Patty ends up playing the rewire advantage on the next slide. Oh, but first, Patty uh, does away with the Elderly Accessible Alliance and brings Lulu and Abby finally into the Wicked Alliance, the Green Pink Alliance. The Wicked movies were coming out around that time, I think, or the second half had come out recently. Great movie. And so they finally get the alliance all together. Patty shares about her rewire advantage, and they decide, yes, this is now the time to play it. So Patty does. They also share about who has keys, and they find out all of them have keys except for Abby. And so this is great news because that means no one else has keys in the game, they realize. Um, and so with Abby playing the rewire power, she now has the shred power in the game and gets to decide whose access card is going to get shredded. And with Elijah playing so hard and so messy, they decide they want to target Elijah this round. So they decide to vote in a circle, more or less, but have Abby be vulnerable so that she could be eligible for the envelope and hopefully get it. ZZ trying to find ZZ and Hendy once again trying to find options other than each other. ZZ goes to Patty and is unsuccessful. ZZ then goes to Aiden, and Aiden agrees that if ZZ gives him the access card that he will save her. Elijah similarly goes to Hendy. Hendy agrees to save Elijah if he gets an extra. So Patty is ultimately deciding who's probably going to go home if she shreds ZZ, thinking that Elijah and ZZ are exchanging, then ZZ's going to go. Even though if they were exchanging, Elijah would have went. If she shreds Elijah, then Elijah would have went because Aiden would have saved ZZ. Even though if they were exchanging, ZZ probably would have went because they were exchanging. In the end, she just decided to assume they were exchanging. With that, Patty saves Abby and Hendy saves Elijah. But ZZ actually, when it comes down to her or Elijah, ZZ throws herself on the sword. She had personal stuff coming up, loved Elijah, wanted to let him keep playing. And so she falls on the sword for him and gets eliminated. With that, ZZ has to choose to give an envelope between Abby and Elijah. Easily gives it to her number one and Elijah, and gives him a final 2 pass. Once again, not what he needs at this point in time, and he's frustrated by that. And this is also a wild incident because if he had gotten a key, again, I think the whole end game goes differently. But the fact that he gets a final 2 pass really, really is another nail in the coffin for the blue team members, as we'll see. So go ahead to the next slide. Patty also gets another burn. It's the rig advantage where you could give access to yourself, but if your access card is shredded, then it's still gone. And she gives that to Abby as well. So Abby is stacked with a bunch of these minor advantages. Hendy also gets gets a burn. And also, that was the last advantage left of the burns. So Hendy chooses the second to last burn of the season, and he gets one of the worst, probably the second worst after ZZ's first one, having to be at risk again. But this is at risk, so nobody can give him an access card, and he is ineligible for the envelope. The key ceremony is coming up soon. He doesn't have a key. There's few numbers left. He doesn't have a lot of room to maneuver. This is really tough for him. Rachel got this right before the key ceremony as well. Manages to have a magnanimous, rich benefactor who ends up saving her in all of the ways. Hendy is in a lot more danger than that. What do you guys think about how this last round played out as I get some water?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally DZ and was playing a great game. Personal stuff came up and had to step away, but I honestly feel like the blue team was a target. They were all very active players. They were all very strong players. And the pink team had just aligned much closer with the green team early on. And so as soon as that power got ripped away from Jason, essentially it was kind of the blue team. One of them is going to go home. Fortunately, Hendy was able to survive this, and then unfortunately gets a terrible disadvantage. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yes. So we go into the next round, and the challenge was a live one where they had to pretty much gamble how much radiation they were willing to be exposed to keep it thematic. Um, Whoever wrote the lowest number would be eliminated, but if you went over the limit of, I think it was like 150 units or whatever, then you would end up being eliminated. And Aiden is able to hit the sweet spot right in the middle, being the lowest all throughout without being eliminated pretty much, and ends up taking out winning this challenge, which Aiden is very much in the middle, tight with Patty, tight with Hendy. Both of those are his top two alliances in this game, both on completely different sides of the game. And right out of the gate, before he even talks to anyone, he tells production, I need to take out Abby. And if you go to the next slide there, Abby's the target. She's got to go. She's a huge threat. She's doing well in these challenges. She's a veteran. She's got to get out of here. Good instincts, Aiden. That was a really good instincts. Um, and uh, Even Hendy, Jason, Elijah realize that none of them have keys. Elijah tells Hendy and Jason, I think he tells both of them that he has a final two pass, not a key. And Hendy's like, don't tell anyone you have a final two pass. Tell them you got a key. But then Hayden goes and tells Aiden that he has a final two pass and not a key, and kind of sinks his own ship here. If they had convinced Aiden that Elijah had a key, then Rich's whole plan that he comes up with is foiled, which we'll get to that. Even still, the three of them, the blue team members, they come up with all these reasons why Aiden should target the other side, especially Abby. All these great reasons that none of them have a key and they should work together to take out the others because they have the keys and that's how we should get them. All these great reasons. They just never tell him. They never go and talk to him and try to reel him in and really work him. And that's going to be their downfall as Abby and Patty very quickly are like, let's pull Aiden in. They regroup the pink team alliance, call it Patty's Angels this time. And Abby's like, here's another chance to take out Rich and teach him a lesson. And so they're pushing for Rich to be the target. Rich then comes to Aiden and pitches a plan of let's target the blue team alliance. And here's the deal. All the four, I know where four of the keys are, and none of the blue team members have them. We have them over here. If you come in with us, the key ceremony is likely to be at the final seven, and six of us will go through. If we ice the blue team members out, then they cannot get a key, and all of us will go through. It's a lock solid plan. And it wouldn't have worked if Aiden believed Elijah got a key. It wouldn't have worked if the blue team members had reeled Aiden in more. It wouldn't have worked if Patty hadn't gotten the rewire and taken ZZ out last round. It wouldn't. There's so many ways that this plan wouldn't have worked. But so many things went wrong for the blue team members that it just didn't make sense. And this was just an open and shut plan from Rich. Great strategic chops from Rich coming up with this plan. And he was floundering, grasping at straws, trying to come up with anything to convince Aiden to be on their side, and it works. So once again, the Wicked Alliance decide to vote in a circle but keep Abby vulnerable. The blue team decides to both vote for Jason, and Jason will save Elijah because they knew about Hendy's disadvantage, and so they couldn't vote for him, and they knew that. And so with that, Aiden had to choose: do I shred? And Aiden also asked the blue team members, how are you voting? Because I need to make sure you don't get a key or become eligible to give each other an envelope here to get a key. Finds out how they're voting and realizes if he shreds Hendy's access card, then Hendy will be forced to be eliminated because and nobody from the blue team will be eligible for an envelope. Therefore, allowing this final six deal to go through. However, there's a twist. We had a system malfunction and the elimination is paused. But before we get into that and move forward, what do you guys think about this round?
I think one of the key underlying tones here too is if you think back to that initial key ceremony, Aiden's last choice was saving Patty, and I think that really saved a warm spot in Patty's heart for Aiden. To where coming into this final six, she was really like, let me like I have Abby. Abby's my number one because she's my daughter. But like if there's a two, there's a real struggle in her heart of I love Aiden more than Rich, at least game wise.
Yes.
And that really helped sway the term of the vote and just the term of the game as a whole. So as much as it was Rich's plan, I feel like without that initial key ceremony going the way it did, I don't think it ends up turning out the way it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Hendy was too focused on his at-risk disadvantage, and the blue team just felt confident in their relationship with Aiden that they were just lazy this round, and laziness will get you eaten in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially someone who was in the middle like Aiden and could be swayed with a solid plan. And Aiden at the time viewed Hendy as his number one ally and is convinced to turn against him, even to the point of eliminating Hendy, his number one ally. And he knew that Hendy would go because of this. And he ends up having to do it anyways because he knows I need to save myself. And I still have Patty as a trustworthy ally. I can work on Abby as a trustworthy ally. Rich has become a close ally now by giving him this plan. So just ends up being a good deal for him. Especially with being in the middle, it's hard. We saw in the season 4 Origins, Greg was in the middle trying to play both sides. The key ceremony bit him because neither side got an extra key to be saved. Rich was kind of in the middle in the last season, but he ended up getting keys early on, and so he was safe because of that. Because his whole kind of alliance got disintegrated, and he ended up kind of the swing between them. But the elimination gets paused, and we do the next round. So Hendy is pretty much eliminated at this point, but nobody knows it. And nobody has confirmation about what actually happened, if they can actually trust Aiden or not. And so the next challenge is unanimous. And so basically, everybody had to figure out, you can go to the next slide. Everybody had to choose one person unanimously to win the challenge. If they do that, that person wins the challenge. If they are unsuccessful, the eliminated players end up getting the shred power and nobody is safe. The blue team members felt really good about nobody getting power and the eliminated players getting it because Cake and Ben were not happy with Patty and Abby on their way out. That's probably going to be the strongest voices in the eliminated players chat. That's good for them. But in public, everybody was like, let's vote for Aiden. And nobody pushed back on that. Aiden just won. Aiden's very much in the middle. Everybody kind of knew that. So if you go to the next slide, they all agree, yeah, we'll vote for Aiden and Aiden will win. However, underneath, the blue team members on the next slide are, and Aiden even secretly was planning on, I didn't really want this. So if you give it to me, then I'm just going to give it up and give it to Rich, which is wild. I don't think it would have been a terrible move. Aiden needed to get a key, and that's why he wanted to do it, so he could be vulnerable and get a key. And he knew that this alliance of six, the alliance of six, including him now, would have saved him because the blue team members were all saying, their names and targeting everybody in the Wicked Alliance. um, but that was not what ended up happening. The blue team easily agree. We need to let this go to the eliminated players. We're not letting these people decide our fate. And so they all just vote different ways for kicks and giggles. Doug and Lulu, at this point, also decide we need to get closer to each other and we need to start worrying about this family alliance. How do we know? Like Abby and Patty say they're targeting Rich, but then always at the last second decide to keep him. How do we know that they're actually going to go after each other once it gets down to us six? If one of them happens to go here, I'm not upset about that. So with Lulu's blessing, Doug decides to also throw his vote. Um, which is the straw that breaks the Wicked Alliance's back with this. Because now it's known, it comes out that it was a vote of five with five votes one way and four individual votes going different ways. Three votes, okay, that's just the blue team members, obviously not agreeing to it. Four votes, somebody within the six didn't go with it. And they try to play it off. The green team members try to play it off. Oh, it was Aiden. Why would he? He didn't want it. He wanted to be vulnerable. But Aiden's like, no. Why would I do that? I agreed to it in the public chat. I was going to give, if I want it, then I could give it to one of you, and then I'm vulnerable. So Patty and Abby very much, and Aiden very much think that it's Lulu that did this, even though Lulu was part of it. It was actually Doug. With this, Abby decides, I need to know if I can trust Aiden or not. So she uses the leak in order to figure out who did Aiden shred last round, and finds out that Aiden shredded Hendy, which means she knows that he's trustworthy, he's with them. However, she only tells Patty this, and they do not tell the others in the Wicked Alliance. And so when they try to pitch, hey, like, let's work together with Aiden in order to take out the blue team members, they're like, well, how do we know we can trust Aiden? We don't know what he did, and you're acting so confident. Abby and Patty also see this as yet another opportunity. Why not take out Rich here? And as long as they get one access card from the green team members and Rich is vulnerable, they can do it. They can take him out. But this ends up creating a lot of animosity. You can go to the next slide. So the Pink Alliance there, they agree to just all vote for Abby. Abby uses her rig power to be able to vote for herself, just to really make sure, there's eliminated players that were not happy with me. Let me just really make sure I'm safe. And with that, the green team also discussed, we need to keep our votes. Initially, they discussed on the next slide, we need to keep our votes within our own group. And so they agree to give their access cards to Lulu, and then Lulu will give to Doug. But when the Wicked Alliance talks about what are we going to do this round, it is a big fight, trying to figure out how do we come together on this. Doug and Lulu don't really even care to try to come together. And Abby and Patty don't really care to come together because they want Rich out. And Doug and Lulu are like, we're content with Abby or Patty going out here. Rich is the sole benefactor of this alliance, and that is trying to pull apart as much as possible. And he basically pulls them all together in a big hug of like, we can figure this out, guys. And basically the compromise is everybody agrees in the Wicked Alliance to give their access cards to Lulu, and Rich gives his access card to Patty on the next slide, I believe. Nope. The blue team decides to just do the same thing that they did the last round, just to make sure that they don't accidentally give the eliminated player an access card and it goes random. Oh yeah, so Rich gives his access card to Patty. Abby and Patty are fine to lie to them and say they'll give to Lulu, but they don't. They keep them on Abby. Elijah uh, decides to just go around and kind of talk with people, feel people out, and in striking up a conversation with Abby, is like, look, we're the biggest threats on both sides of the board here. Why don't we come together and work together? And Abby's like, you know what, Elijah? Yes, let's do that. I want to get Rich out, and if you're at least voting for me, I'm my alliance is safe, and potentially that can lead to me taking out Rich here. And Abby was prepared to eliminate Rich over Elijah if it came to that. But before we could get to that, we had to rewind and go back to the previous elimination. I believe that's what's next. Oh, yeah. First, the eliminated players, they discuss who do we want to shred. Vonnie pushes hard for Abby to be shredded. Ben's like, why wouldn't we shred like Patty, who we think would probably vote for Abby? But no one really talks all that much, so they just all kind of agree, sure, we'll shred Abby. Um, doesn't make a difference because Abby's very well set at this point. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so Abby's access card is shredded. But we rewind, I believe, is next. Yes, so we rewind back to the final 9, and it is finally revealed that Abby and Hendy are vulnerable. Patty has to save. Patty easily saves Abby. Hendy is gone. Hendy has to give an envelope to somebody, and none other. The only person eligible is none other than the person he said to take out the entire season, Abby, giving her a key into the end game here. Which means next round happens. Oh, Patty also gets the last burn of the season. It's a glitch. She has to, after the next challenge ends, she has to reveal who she's giving access or shredding right away and lock it in. So she has that. Then we're down to the final 8. And during that round, once again, this is where things were at, except on the next slide, Hendy was actually eliminated. So his access card wasn't actually doing anything. So instead of Jason being safe, Jason was vulnerable. And Patty ended up having to save people. Abby, sorry, had to save people. Abby saved Eden easily. And then it was between Jason and Rich. And Elijah was begging. Rich was begging. Elijah was begging, save Jason. We'll form a threesome alliance. Me, you, and Jason will dominate the end game. Save us, save us, save us, please. Rich was saying, save me, please. I'm sitting right next to you on the couch. If you save me, I will give you my key, and then you're safe no matter what. And in a moment of weakness, Abby saves Rich, which on paper is probably, I was thinking was probably the right move, because once you're down to 6, that means that pretty much both the blue players are getting eliminated here because none of them have a key. If you get down to 6 and you have an alliance of 3 and your alliance wins the final 6 challenge, which Abby is a comp beast, then you can guarantee you guys final 3, at least final 4, at least. You're set up very well to make it through the final 6 round and the final 5 round and get to the final 4, probably even final 3. And Abby was a challenge beast, so things are likely to go their way if they got to that final 6 of the green 3 versus the pink 3. However, that was not necessarily the case, and this could have gone out so many different ways. But let's keep moving here. I think I have, yes. So Jason has to give the final envelope, ends up giving to Aiden over Rich. So the 6 plan works out. We get to the key ceremony, and Elijah is the only one without a key and is eliminated. He has the final 2 pass. He has to give that away. He gives that to Abby. Feels like she is the most deserving. She was the one that was trying to save him in the end, so he gives it to her. We end up in a final 6 where Rich and Abby have final 2 passes, which is wild. But yeah, so let's rewind the clock here. Go to the next slide. Let's say that Abby saves Jason at the final 8 here, and Rich is eliminated. Rich had told us, if Abby eliminates me, then I'm giving the blue team everything. Go to the next slide. So Rich had a key to give out, and he would have given an envelope. So he could have given the envelope to Jason, and he could have given his key to Elijah. which means that Aiden would have been the one left without. And then we go into a final six with two blue, two green, and two pink. Elijah was pitching a final three with Abby. This would have been a very interesting end game had Abby just stuck to her guns. And I think it probably favors her more if she had actually done this. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the competition aspect for Abby would definitely have been into her favor. I mean, you're down to three duos potentially. Lulu and Doug are locked in, and Abby and Patty are locked in. Jason and Elijah are locked in, but Abby also seemingly has a connection with Elijah. And that is kind of the only connection outside of those three duos. There's a little bit of connection between Lulu and Doug, but after the stray vote during the unanimous challenge, Patty doesn't trust either of them. So it it very much could just come down to challenge wins at this point. And Abby, Patty being the biggest social and challenge threats of those six could be the detriment, but it could also help them.
Pete, what do you think?
As someone who's been played by Abby multiple seasons, I it was nice to see a guy finally get one over on Abby. As most of our pride can attest to her being able to get one over on all of us. Um, that being said, I mean, from a strictly competition standpoint, I mean, I feel like this is kind of a fatal flaw of the game because I really do think she probably wins out in the end. And outside of trying to find a final two pass, like this was it, and she picked Rich.
Mhm. Yeah, and if this had happened, so I know Elijah got a lot of flack for making this decision to give his access card to Abby. If he hadn't have done it, then Jason and Elijah are also through, and they would have forced it instead of Elijah kind of giving it up. But if Elijah doesn't give his access card to Abby, Jason was going to the final six and not him. Jason would have taken Aiden's spot. Rich or Aiden would have, if Rich stays, Aiden goes and Jason goes through instead. Um, uh, yeah, because they would have been choosing between Rich or Aiden going to the final. Anyways, Jason would have been the one that was trusted more than Elijah at that point, especially with Elijah trying to play everybody and control things that one round and try to get Abby out. But with so Elijah needed to shake things up, and he did that successfully. He got Abby to completely flip on him, Patty to completely flip on him. They would have chosen Elijah over Rich and Jason and Hendy, whereas he was like the number one target, dead man walking in their eyes. And so this move, while it didn't benefit his blue team members, it benefited him. And even if he solo gets into the final six without Jason and Hendy, he now is in the final six with a final two pass, with rivalries between the green and pink teams. And he could have really easily found himself in the final two and potentially winning this season. Um, so I feel like this decision to keep or not keep Rich probably hurts Elijah the most out of anybody because he probably would have been in a really good spot to win had he made it through here. And all he needed was for Rich to go for that to happen. Um, and I don't think he gets there if he just keeps Jason instead of Abby. He needed Abby to flip in order to get there. Um, but here we are in the final six. Um, and the challenge is to see how many times you can to toss a ping pong ball, have it bounce off things and land in a cup, and how many bounces can you get it before it lands in the cup. And while we intended for the cup to be stationary, we didn't describe that well enough in the rules that Rich was able to find a loophole, a very contentious loophole, and win the challenge. Had he not found the loophole, Abby would have won this challenge. And again, it would have been a very different season. However, I think the person again that is hurt the most by Rich winning this challenge and the season going to the green team instead of the pink team is Aiden. I think Aiden would have most likely won the season had Abby won that challenge. Um, Even if they were able to get to the final three together, I think Rich gets eliminated at six. Then Doug and Lulu, when they get eliminated, and Rich gives his final two pass to Doug and Lulu. When they get eliminated uh, together, they would probably give it to Aiden over Abby and Patty. And Abby would have had the other final two pass, would have been Aiden and Abby. And even if Aiden hadn't have gotten it, Patty was heavily debating sacrificing herself at the final three because she enjoyed Abby and Aiden so much. And so if it's an Abby and Aiden final two, I think Aiden wins. The jury very much seemed to very much love Aiden. I think the only person that could have beaten Aiden out of this final six is Patty. Patty, if she gets there against anyone, I think she wins. Aiden is secondarily. After that, it's pretty much Doug and Lulu, and then maybe Rich or Abby. That was pretty much what the tiers looked like. Abby could have had an upset, could have convinced people probably better than Rich ended up doing, but wasn't meant to be, as Rich wins the challenge on the next slide. Oh, and here's the duos better that you can see. So Lulu and Doug, very much a duo. Abby and Patty, very much a duo. Patty and Aben, very much a duo. Rich kind of on his own, but still has the Wicked Alliance and the Green Team and the Family Alliance. Rich wins the challenge, and Patty had to immediately expose where her access card was going and lock it in with the glitch disadvantage. And while she told Aiden, I'm gonna give my access card to Abby, Aiden's like, no, don't give it to me. And she was like, okay, I don't want to lose this relationship. I need you on my side. And so she does it and then pitches to the Wicked Alliance. Is like, why'd you do that? And she's like, well, you can shred it. Not a big deal. But the straw that breaks the camel's back here is they lied about they were supposed to give their access cards to Lulu back when Henry was eliminated. Or no, in the previous round when Rich was almost eliminated and Jason was instead. They didn't because they were trying to get Rich out and they didn't admit it. They were lying about whose access card was shredded and that Patty was shredded and all this stuff. So Doug, Lulu, and Rich were like, I just don't think we can trust them. We're going to keep Aiden in over them. You can go to the next slide. Rich very much felt like Patty was the person to beat at this point, wanted to target her, told his alliance that. And so go to the next slide. However, Patty and Abby sensed this, decided to get mischievous. Abby, suspecting Rich might have the final two pass from Cake, plays the ping and confirms it, and then tells everybody that Rich has the final two pass. Rich pretty much admits to it. Patty claims she has the other one. And so everybody now knows where the final two passes are. It doesn't really make a whole bunch of difference at this point. Really, the only difference this makes is that Lulu and Doug, while they were planning to go to the final two, now realize they can't because there was no way that they could get both final two passes. Either they were there with Rich in the final three and Rich would have had one, or they're there in the final three with a pink team member and the pink team member would have the other final two pass. So, but that didn't stop them from wanting to work together. Doug and Lulu agree to exchange access cards. Rich tells them they're safe if they do that. At first, the pink team, Abby, Patty, and Aiden just agree to exchange access cards in a circle. However, on the next slide, Aiden and Lulu have a conversation, and Lulu is able to flip Aiden and telling them, like, they're a family. They're going to choose each other. Every time Rich is almost out, like, they save him and vice versa. Like, how do we know that they're actually going to take each other out? And so Aiden decides to flip and tries to kind of push, let's take Abby out over Patty, despite knowing that Patty was Rich's target here. In the end, Lulu was the one that had the extra access card as Rich shredded Abby's access card. So Patty and Abby were left without. And Lulu makes a big move because nobody was expecting this, although Aiden was really happy about it. Lulu takes out Abby because of her comp threats ability and keeps Patty in despite Patty being the most likely to win, and they all kind of know it, and claiming that she has a final two pass. what did you guys think of Lulu taking out Abby over Patty?
I mean, I feel like one of the things that you kind of have to really harp on too with this is the public immediate vote. Um, Patty, I mean, kudos to Aiden for getting Patty to play it on her, but in a situation where that doesn't happen, I think you probably see Patty give it to Abby,
Mhm.
and I think both of them are safe, and Aiden ends up getting sacrificed in the end. Um, as far as Lulu making the big move here, I think one of Lulu's weaknesses this season was comps. I mean, especially early on, we saw her faltering under pressure. So this was really her chance to make a statement, and she took it. So I mean, I felt like that was a theme throughout the season for all of our power players. It was just kind of when can you find the right timing, and this was Lulu's right timing.
Mhm.
Yeah, in a game where one person has, at least in the individual phase, one person has the power and the shred, they sometimes and very often don't actually get to decide who goes home. They just are safe and they can decide kind of one of an alliance might get sent home. But in this case, Lulu did the work. Lulu had to get the extra vote from Aiden, and ultimately then she got to decide who goes home. Personally, I think it was a great decision. If we kind of talked about this a little bit ago, but like if you have 3-3 at the final six and you win, you have a great shot of getting to the final four or further if you just stick together. So assuming Lulu trusts Doug and Rich in that three-person non-toxic alliance, they can take out Patty later, but they cannot let Abby win the next challenge.
Yeah. I yeah, I think in the moment I felt like this was a bad move because if Lulu gets to the end with has to go to the end with a pink team member and ends up there with Abby, I think Lulu could still beat Abby, and the jury seemed to be in that position. But if she happened to get there against Patty, then she would very much lose. But and Patty almost ends up pulling it out in the end. Um, but it ends up working out for her. But I still am not sure if this was really the best decision, but it does end up working for her in the end.
I say,
With
I think. Oops,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I think one other thing that Lulu really thought about and kind of took into perspective too is this kind of put her on top of the pyramids of two different things. It allowed her to have the rich Doug and her lines, but also have an avenue with Aiden.
Hmm.
Whereas before, if had she left Abby in and taken Aiden out, then she just has her group of three, and she's at Rich's mercy not to hose her and Doug in the end.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Abby was probably the person she was the least close to out of everyone left in the game too. So socially, it was a good move for her as well. Because even in the next round, we'll see she is the person that they try to swing. But with Abby being eliminated and having a final two pass, she gives it to her mom because of course. Um, with that, we're in our final five. And really, the question here is, are the green team members going to stick together or not? Um, with that, the next challenge, Patty ends up winning it because she was the only one able to get set. Unfortunately, we were really not unfortunate that Patty won. It was unfortunate. We were really looking forward to a long challenge, and it ended up being over in less than a minute. Good news for Aiden, who was wanting to get to bed, being in the UK. And with that, the jury, it was time for jury selection to happen. Here's everybody who is eligible for jury. Not everybody wanted to be eligible for jury. Um, and so they all had to decide who to give access to jury. And Rich here had the jury shred. And so he decided to try to make a deal with Patty. Hey, you give me, you won the challenge, give me the challenge win, and I'll give you the jury shred. Or because he just wanted to be safe. How about you give me your final two pass and I'll give you the jury shred, and then I have leverage in the game and decide where both the final two passes go. But Patty wasn't having it. She just wanted to make sure that Abby got on the jury, and she and Aiden talked about it. They both agreed they felt like Abby deserved to be on the jury. Aiden was tempted to put Vonnie on there due to their due to their relationship in the game or outside of, but in the end, they both ended up giving to Abby. The green players, Lulu, Doug, and Rich, they discussed who do we feel like is the most even. They all agreed early, very quickly. Tyler, none of them knew or really talked to all that much in the game. And then while they considered putting Vonnie and Hendy and Zizi on, uh, each of Vonnie very much when Vonnie's name was brought up, Lulu was like, "No, pretty sure Vonnie hates me, and he knows it, and I know he knows that I don't like him, and I know vice versa." When Hendy was brought up, Doug was like, "No, no, no, no." Doug Hendy said he doesn't like me on his way out. Between ZZ and Jason, Jason seemed the more even Steven of the two, and so Jason is put on the jury. Again, they're all kind of working together to figure out an even like Nash equilibrium for who to put on the jury instead of just doing what's best for you. Like, oh, Vonnie doesn't like Lulu and Lulu doesn't like Vonnie. Just throw Vonnie on the jury. That's a guaranteed vote for me. Oh, Hendy doesn't like Doug. Throw him on the jury. Like I might be sitting next to Doug in the final two, but they decided to make it a team sport, and that's all right. Rich knows that Abby will not vote for him and that Patty will put Abby on the jury, so he shreds her jury vote. But Aiden was already putting Abby on, so Abby makes it through. Um, and here's our first four of the jury. The last three jury members will be the three eliminated out of the final five and don't make the final two. With that, with our final five, Aiden knows he's in danger. He tries to get in with Doug and Lulu. Let's take out Rich. Patty, Aiden, and Lulu try to form an alliance. Let's take out Rich. Um, Doug and Lulu are like, we're just sticking together. We're not going to turn on each other, and we get to decide who goes home here. But Lulu is the one with the power again, and she decides to save Rich. Uh, she doesn't feel like she could beat Aiden in the end, and I agree. Aiden would have more likely won against her in a final two scenario. Um, with that, we're in our final four, and all that's left here is Patty versus the non-toxic alliance. If Patty wins this challenge, she likely wins the game. If she doesn't win this challenge, she's likely going home and probably choosing who wins the game. So going to the next slide, our final four. Patty and Rich have the final two passes. Unfortunately, Rich ends up winning. They all do really badly on this challenge, actually. This was the full circle challenge. I think Rich got 9 out of the 18 correct, so only like half. Patty gets like 6, I think. She came in second place, I believe. Um, but I really thought Patty had the edge in this challenge, since it being more of a memory challenge, but Rich ends up being able to pull it out. With that, Patty's done for, um, which is the strategic right choice. Patty was going to beat everybody in the end. Do you guys have thoughts or anything to add to this?
These last two rounds were kind of self-explanatory. There's an argument to take out Rich and hope that Rich gives a final two pass to you, but in the end, like I don't know if they could have predicted which of the two of them were going to get it, and then ultimately, if they keep two pinks, they're almost guaranteed to go up against the pinks. So then it's the question of can either of them beat Patty and Aiden, and they can't. And it's the same situation here. If we take out Rich and keep Patty, Patty's going to the final two. So can we beat Patty again? No. So the Patty and Aiden unfortunately just got beat by the challenges. They both could have won this game had they won one of those challenges in either of these last two rounds, and unfortunately didn't. So that's just how the cookie crumbles when you can't win challenges. So as we said earlier, there's a lot of social games, a lot of trust game, but especially near the end of the game, like challenges are crucial.
Yep. Or even winning the challenge and deciding who has the safety and the shred power. Um, yeah, and especially once Lulu takes out Abby, they pretty much have to take out Aiden and Patty and go with Rich to the final three. I think Abby's the only one of the pink people, the pink players that they could have potentially beaten, but she was also a huge challenge threat, so it's understandable. With
Yeah.
Patty being eliminated, she does give her final two pass to Lulu. I kind of thought that she would give it to Doug because Patty and Doug had much more of a working relationship throughout the game. Although Patty and Lulu were in the girls' alliance to start, Patty very much was girl power. Lulu definitely had the stronger social game and had been building up the social relationship with Patty. I don't know. What did you guys think about choosing Lulu over Doug?
I mean, she made the comment that it was the girls' alliance for sure. I think also like Lulu earlier in this round or the previous round had reached out to her about making it an all-girls final two,
Mhm.
and I think Patty was excited about that.
Yeah, and if Rich had lost that challenge or Patty won the final four challenge, I think Lulu was like, "Yeah, I'll take second place. Let's take out Rich, and then hopefully I go to the final two with you, and maybe Lulu is able to pull it out. Who knows? I think there's an argument to be made for sure. Better to be there and have a chance to argue it out. That's for sure. Um, Pete, did you have anything to add?
I said, nope.
Okay. With that, we're at our final three. It's the final two ceremony. Uh, as you can see, go ahead to the next slide. Um, Lulu was the most trusted between Doug and Rich. They both trusted her more than the other. But in the end, what mattered the most was who had the final two passes, and Doug just didn't have the goods. And so he was eliminated. And Doug was content to go to the final three um, with them, even if he didn't end up making the final two. He was willing to gamble it. There was some drama of Rich had promised at like final six or final five. If we get to the final three, let's just randomize the final two passes and we'll let it be a random draw who goes to the final two. And he obviously did not do that. Um, but and so there was a little bit of animosity about that, but really, Doug, really it didn't play a part really at all.
I say that being said, kudos to Doug. I know we haven't talked a lot about him throughout the evening, but he played a good game as far as keeping himself kind of socially neutral, but also involved enough to where his name was never really out there, but he never was without votes. He did well getting to the end, and I mean, you have the challenges fall the right way. Maybe he actually gets up in that final final five challenge. I mean, he may have a chance to be in the final two, and I mean, you put him up against Rich, and it may actually be a close Doug vote.
I think Doug wins against Rich. I think unfortunately, Rich has no shot against anybody of the final six um, uh, in winning, especially with how Abby and Patty went out. Um, but
There is a shot that Rich could beat Abby, and that's the only option. Just because not because of Abby playing worse, but because of the jury not liking Abby. Especially, I mean, at that point, Cake wasn't on the jury, but Cake was not happy. Ben was not happy. There's a lot of people not happy with Abby and how she was playing.
mhm. Yeah, and I think Rich was also looking for like a cake or who else was it? Like a cake or Elijah to be on the jury because he had really good relationships with them. Cake had given him all his gear. Cake was on the record. She was Team Lulu of the final two. Um, but he was looking for more friends to be eligible for the jury, and it just wasn't the case. Going back to what you were saying, Pete, about Doug, of the final three, Lulu very much was the social, Rich very much was the competitions, and Doug, I feel like very much was the strategic side of things. While Rich definitely did have great strategic moments and swung things very drastically, strategically at times, Doug was just plotting the whole way through it and always had another alliance idea that he was hooking people into. We saw he was part of the Vision Alliance. He had the relationship with the blue team members. He had the relationship with the pink team members. Like Doug was always covered strategically. It's just, and he would have made the final two pretty much in any circumstance, um, except he didn't have a final two pass. And there was also one point he made a comment that kind of dissed Rich, and that's what Rich ended up trusting Lulu more than him. But so Rich was just being petty about that. But other than that, Doug played a really, really great game and very had a deserving winning game if he could have made it. But our final two are Lulu and Rich, and as they faced the jury, it was very clear there was a lot of animosity towards Rich. That Lulu played a great social game. You can go to the next slide. This is our jury. Abby and Patty very much against Rich. You can go to the next slide. Abby and Patty were very much against Rich, did not want to see him win, especially um, given how the game had played out, and they were trying to prove to each other who was the better player. They didn't want him to really get the win that way. Doug had been way more loyal to Lulu than Rich. Really, they had been the final two together at the end, so he very much was cheering Lulu on. He wasn't necessarily against Rich, but he was way more for Lulu. The others also end up all voting for Lulu to win. Uh, Jason very much felt like Rich had an unfair advantage with all the people that he knew in the game, Abby and Patty especially. Having the three of them together was an unfair advantage. Uh, yeah, it also put a big threat on their backs, and you all could have taken them out, and it didn't work out. Rich also was a veteran player coming back in. Lulu hadn't played before. Lulu didn't have anybody. That's why he felt like Lulu deserved to win. Aiden had the better social relationship with Lulu as well. And Tyler was here for the vibes. The vibes were all anti-Rich. So he was all for that. Ben didn't vote, but Ben and Lulu were so close. I don't think Ben and Rich really talked all that much. I'm certain that he would have voted for Lulu to win. With that, Lulu becomes our sixth winner of Access, joining the ranks of Mac and Sam, Cam and Maddie and Tim, who have all won their seasons of Access. And Lulu really ends up winning here, doing to have her win is the main reason she wins the season is because of her social capabilities and also getting lucky. There was a lot of luck in her game that challenges went her way a lot. The rewire went her way. I think she could have coped potentially, even if those things go a different way, but she's helped a lot that this non-toxic Green Alliance is able to hold together, and everything in that structure just benefited her more than everybody else in the game. So a lot of luck, but also just massive, massive strategic chops and some good plays and making some big moves. So she plays a really, really worthy game. Rich made a lot of moves as well. Lulu is way more well liked in the end. You can go to the next slide. And that's the cast in elimination order. What do you guys think? What do you think of the season?
I mean, I think in terms of the winners, Rich played a really good game. Rich made a lot of big moves, was in the center of most of the drama, especially was kind of that glue that kept the green and the pink team sort of connected for a little bit longer. Survived multiple eliminations where they knew he had a final two pass. Like that's hard to do. So props to Rich for that. But Rich's big downfall was he just did not talk to people. He didn't communicate with people that were not in his alliance, basically. Whereas Lulu was constantly talking to everyone. I know Jason's big question was, why did you not talk to me? Tyler, why did you not talk to me? Like that will burn you votes. Like you won't get someone's vote if they never talk to you, even if you objectively played the better game. And also, Rich's big downfall was he had two people on the jury advocating against him. Abby and Patty very clearly did not want him to win. They didn't think he played a good game. And whether it was personal or whether it was logical, like it's hard to beat somebody when you have everyone pushing against you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was going to say, just from the season standpoint as a whole, I feel like from day one, this season took off full steam ahead. And I mean, it really didn't stop till you got to the end. I mean, even with the final six to final three kind of being somewhat predictable once Abby went out, I mean, from the agent elimination up to the very end, I mean, it was guns a-blazing. I mean, you drop out the Ramirez round, and every round felt like somebody different could go home. Um, I mean, you look at just the first half, and I mean, all of us were sitting back saying it's probably a Cake ZZ Abby game. And I mean, within the halfway point, Cake and ZZ went around, and I mean, I don't think any of us had money on Lulu winning this thing early on in the season.
I did. She was my winner pick.
So Brandon just admitted it was rigged. No,
No, she was my winner pick because she stood out. She like was sharing what she was thinking. She had done her homework. She watched all the videos beforehand. She was very intentional, even starting out, of like, I'm gonna be of how she's gonna connect with people. She even shared like her strategy of how to talk with people, of like, I'm gonna talk with them about personal stuff first, and then I'm gonna talk about game and strategic stuff. And that's how she built her relationships and was able to pull people in so well. Um, Obviously, I didn't know that before I made her my winner pick, but um, I just felt like she was experienced in orgs and that she had done her homework. And I don't know, I was getting a vibe that Lulu was going to win it. I ended up being right. So sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I say that was really it. I appreciate that the cast as a whole brought it completely this season. And I mean, I've seen some of them around the community, and I feel like a lot of people had really good games. I mean, there was obviously some burnout, but it was just an overall really good cast.
Yeah, yeah, this was a great season with a great cast. Pretty much all of them were fighting for it, tooth and nail. Uh, Everyone trying to make their own path as best as possible. And yeah, we couldn't ask for much more from this cast. They did a really great job. So thank you everyone who played in this season. Um, is there? Yeah, thank you everyone that played in this season. With that, do you want to go to the next slide? Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if you have enjoyed Access, then feel free to join our server, like and comment or whatever on the video or something. Join the Access server, and that's the best place to find out news of what's coming next. We don't know. It's still to be determined. But if you like this stuff, let us know. So thank you for watching. Thank you for everyone that's played. Thank you to Cam and Pete and Mac for helping me run this thing. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll see you soon with more to come. All right. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.